99-cent rental.
This is 99 Cent Rental. I'm your host, Brian White, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave White. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there?
Oh, hello. I am pretty well. Went out last night. It was a late night for me. Went out to see Dawn of the Dead at the Coolidge Corner Theater.
Ooh, yeah.
In the presence of Ken Faree.
Joe Grizzly.
Joe Grizzly himself, bitch. I've never seen that in a theater. Have you ever seen it in a theater?
Yes.
I know it doesn't make the rounds very often, but
I saw it when Alamo did the Rolling Road show a million years ago.
It was fun to see it in a theater. It is, I mean, obviously it has a very big soundtrack. Like the actual audio track is very big in that movie. And to hear Goblin's music in the big theater, it was pretty fun. I believe it was the Romero cut.
Yeah.
So fortunately it was not like 3 hours long, but it was still pretty long. And the Q&A at the end, it just kind of like, it went on and on. Like next thing you know, it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm like, God damn it. I've been trying to go out. I've been trying to force myself to go do more stuff. Like
you don't want to be shut in.
I live in a place where stuff happens occasionally. So
take advantage of that.
We went and did that. It was pretty good. So I went to the movies twice last week.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Whoa now.
Well, listen, I spent about 15 years having not gone to the movies at all. It was only, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and Ash and Elena wanted to go see the new Scream movie, and I was like, all right, fine.
It just broke the seal.
Yeah. Well, look at me now.
That's great.
Why, I'm practically Siskel and or Ebert.
God help us. I have learned a new phrase. I've been talking to the children, to the kids.
Oh, Jesus. You know, like Riz on the toilet.
Oh,
what the fuck can they say?
Skibbity toilet.
Fucking hell.
No, it's not that. This is a phrase that, like, if you want to be like, hello, fellow kids, tell this. If you want to give somebody a compliment, you tell them that, you tell them that they're eating down.
Excuse me?
I heard this today.
From where?
A kid came up, I was at my daughter's graduation, and a kid came up and told her that her makeup was eating down. And I was like, explain. and
you're like, what the fuck did you just say?
Eating down. So yeah, you bust that out every now and then when you want to really confuse somebody.
I won't, only because the extent of my engagement with young people is usually look up, get out of the way.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh boy. So it's hard to explain to someone who never had the experience what a trip to the video store was like back in the day. The shelves were choked with absolutely bizarre crap made on tiny budgets, completely divorced from any recognizable reality, and it was the best. We intend to talk about every one of them. And just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod, and Dave's over there at That Queer Wolf.
Yeah.
Follow us. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm giving you gay movie recommendations right now. Not just gay. Not just gay. We got the whole spectrum in there. The whole fucking rainbow.
Not just the L's and the G's. We got the B's, we got the T's, we got the Q's and the IAs and the pluses.
Well, there's definitely no IAs. I don't even know what pluses are. So
it's the and the rest of
all the rest here on Gilligan's Island.
Yep. And if you don't know, we have another show called Bring Me the Axe. Our latest episode covering Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is out now, and we'll be back next week with a look at the lesbian paranoia of Jacques Tourneur's Cat People.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh, man.
Great movie.
Yep. You can also contact us directly at 99centrentalpod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if it's a cheesy movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can do that. You can look us up over there at patreon.com/bringmetheaxpod. There's a couple of tiers you can join there. Subscribers at the $5 a month tier can look forward to our bi-weekly X-Files and Rewatch pod. Do you think I'm spooky? It's also like about 50% 90s history.
Yep.
It's fun. We have a good time with that one.
Look, I got to do something. I can't just sit there.
we talk about Celine Dion way more than you think we would.
Well, that's because everybody forgets. She played a pretty big role in our lives in the 90s, just as a people.
Greatest singer in the world.
The greatest singer in the world.
Yep. Our monthly Bring Me the X Millennium Edition, which is a bonus episode in which we explore modern horror movie. Our latest episode covers Jamie Marks is Dead from 2014.
No, hoot and a half, that one.
We do our best not to really get into the weeds on it, because that's a sad movie. Yep. And there's also my bi-weekly DJ show, Radio Free Haddonfield. In the weeks when Do You Think I'm Spooky is off, you can expect a surprising mixtape of everything from rock to disco to punk over there. And also, all Patreon subscribers, even the free tier, get access to our Discord server. Paying members get access to additional channels, voice and video chat, and the watch parties option. Watch movies with us on Friday night. It's fun. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, maybe I will.
You never do.
I don't. Look, I have like one night in my life I can socialize. And it is the only time I actually socialize.
Yeah. Once again, that's patreon.com/bringmetheaxpod. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube. Search us by name and subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So do it.
Yeah.
Costs you nothing.
Tell me what your favorite Celine Dion song was in the 90s.
Tell us if we're eating down.
Do not talk to me like that ever. Not on the internet, not in public.
And if you listen on YouTube, do us a favor, give the episode a like and leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys. Just want to get that all out of the way right at the top of the show, because yeah,
it's about to get real sweaty.
Oh boy. Yeah, this movie is just sweat pouring from every pore. It's crazy. Here's the trailer.
How would you like to disappear?
Disappear?
Go undercover.
You know this man?
Who's here? I'm here. You're here. These victims are all the same physical type.
What about him, Skip?
Late 20s, 140, 150 pounds. Dark hair, dark eyes.
Have you ever seen him before?
I want to send you out there to see if you can attract this guy.
How, where?
A New York City detective in search of a killer is about to disappear into the night.
Is it dangerous?
I can't talk about it.
How do you know you're gonna end up the same person when it's over?
An odyssey to the edge of city life.
Bartenders are starting to give me some information. There's this name keeps popping up all the time. There he is. The one with the hat.
Is that the one that followed you?
Yeah.
Why didn't you go with him?
I don't know. I think you should check him.
If you want to play, I'll play with you.
He's the wrong guy.
Prints don't match.
What he sees
Who's here?
what he feels,
I don't think I can do the job, Captain. I don't think I can handle it.
I'm here.
There's just stuff going down. I don't think I can deal with it.
You're here.
what he experiences. What he discovers will change his life forever. Al Pacino.
Who's here? I'm here. You're here.
Cruising.
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino.
Wow. That's a pretty good trailer. I say.
Pretty solid trailer. And very evasive about the movie's subject matter, despite the fact that there's like not really a woman in any of them. Just
I'm
bars
going to argue that
full of
this
women,
movie,
full of dudes.
the movie in general is very evasive about its subject matter.
Well, to the extent that it was trying to just get an R rating, sure.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Cruising.
Yeah. A movie I have complicated feelings about because I enjoy this movie tremendously. I think it is I think it's really, really fucking good. It's extremely well made. It's consistent in its mood and theme. It's gritty and nasty. And unfortunately, it ends on a note that I just fucking hate.
I think that most of what you just said is true. I think that it is extremely well photographed. I think that it has a vibe. It has a style. And that's all that it has, really. I think when it comes to the story itself, it's kind of like they sacrificed the plot of this movie for those other things. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Can't disagree
sort
with
of
you.
in this, though.
Can't disagree with you. I think the movie wins me over entirely on its vibe. But there was the second time that I watched. So we watched this on the Discord on Friday night to a mostly silent audience. Usually there's a bit of banter, a bit of chatter during that.
Not a lot of zingers for this one.
This one was uncharacteristically quiet. The only movie viewing we did in the Discord that was quieter was Hour of the Wolf. But the second time I went through it, basically the next night, it occurred to me that at the moment that they're like, here's the yearbook, see if you recognize anybody, the movie's like, oh shit, that's right. Like I have to like, there's a mystery unraveling here that I have to see to the end. And it just all of a sudden just is like, fuck it. We'll just connect some dots and shit.
Yeah, because by that point, it's already too late. You've spent literally three quarters of this movie. They ignore the entire plot for the most part in favor of all of these interior club scenes, which, I mean, I don't, again, you get vibe from it, but you don't get a lot else from it. And I think once you add I know I go on and on about historical context a lot. This is one in which it really matters. And I think once you know the full extent of the story behind it and everything that's happening culturally at the time, it becomes a lot more problematic than I think we like to pretend that it isn't today. So I will, in the interest of, I don't want to bring everybody down, but this is probably it's the first and God knows probably the only time that my actual expertise will ever come in handy. So, So I want to provide a little bit of context up top here, because the story about this movie, the movie itself, is not usually what's remembered. It's usually remembered because it was so controversial at the time. And the reason it's controversial at the time is because it was, I think, cover a lot of movies that are protested. This one was extremely heavily protested all over the country.
Yeah, there's actually two phases of protest for this movie, because it was...
And some of them are not. Some of them are a little disingenuous. They're not. Some of them are bad faith arguments, but not all of them.
Yeah, and also I'm not sure to what extent the sort of the way that the production was allegedly sabotaged numerous times. I don't know how much of that is apocryphal.
Probably a lot of it.
Yeah,
is my guess. The reason that this gets heavily protested is this movie comes out in 1980. They start filming in 1979, I think. The book is kicking around since, I think, 1970
is when it was published.
The book is, well, we'll talk about why the book is a little bit different in a bit, but it comes out in 1980. And in 1980, this is a period of unprecedented anti-gay violence around the country. And that's everything from harassment to murder. And that is the direct result of increased visibility and increased sort of political and social capital. And so that in itself is a problem, because the gay people historically had been used to seeing themselves either as villains or as victims, and that's it. And this is a movie where they are almost exclusively the target of violence. And so one of the problems that this movie presents is that it presents the issue of anti-gay violence as though it is something that is coming from within the gay community rather than a problem from straight men, almost exclusively from straight men. And it also minimizes, so in doing that, it minimizes the severity, and it distracts from the actual victimization of people. And I think it nods to the problem of police harassment, but it doesn't really lean into it. Now, of course, in retrospect, we know that there were and are gay serial killers. They're not that common, but there are, and that sometimes they do prey on their own communities. But I think at the time that wasn't going to be a helpful or productive argument, and so nobody really wanted to acknowledge it, and most people didn't really know that either. It also perpetuates a stereotype that gay men and queer people more broadly are dangerous. They are a danger to society. And so it also, it sort of reinforces a lot of really bad things. The second thing that it does, though, and this is a little less important, but it's the peak at the peak of the gay rights movement, which is sort of like late 60s into the 70s, kind of into the early 80s a little bit. There were a lot of activists, well, I'm not going to say a lot, but a certain percentage of activists who they believed the best way to achieve equality was to kind of be perceived as decent and morally upstanding. So essentially through assimilation. Mm-hmm. It's the we're just like you argument. And the reality is we're not just like you in a lot of different ways. And many of them are beyond our control. But and so they didn't want the world to see aspects of gay culture that would have been perceived negatively. So things like drag, things like the leather community, things that people could look at and be like, oh, that's an aberration. That's different from straight culture. Now, in reality, most of this shit exists in straight culture too.
Sure. Yeah. It's just that, there is a leather and a BDSM community among straights that is significant. It's just, they're way more quiet about it.
Yeah. And so what this does is it takes that, this sort of like secret shame, essentially, that a lot of people felt, and kind of puts it out there and promotes that idea that was kind of widely perceived already in the straight world that gay men are sort of deviant and hypersexual. Now, this is not an entirely inaccurate portrayal of the bars. We will get into a lot of that because that is also another one of my expertise. But it does present this problem of we don't want the straight world to see this because then there could be repercussions. And in fact, there were. Like this movie, it's a causation correlation kind of thing, but like it didn't cause more violence, but it became an excuse for more violence.
Oh, sure. There are a couple of crimes that happen right around the release of the movie that the prosecutors turned around, or rather defense of those cases turned around and pointed directly at cruising. Yeah. Which I disagree, but sure, that's what they always do.
But you can see that's the type where you can still see this today that obviously not with the leather community, because I don't know that it's as big a thing as it used to be, but you can still see it with like, in political sense, especially after, Kamala Harris lost the election, you see a certain number of queer people, mostly white men, who are trying to kind of jettison trans people or sort of throw them under the bus because they believe that, it's either they believe it or they fear that by being trans inclusive, that will reflect badly on them or somehow damage their ability to assimilate. So some of the protest comes from that belief that like this is just furthering stereotypes, and it is promoting negative ideas and encouraging violence, or at least doing nothing to kind of quell the violence. But on the other hand, there's also some people protesting the content of the movie, saying you're misrepresenting us, or you're showing this as though it is this is a representation of gay people, when in fact it's really just a kind of a subculture within a subculture already. And I also will want to say that I think the movie started out, and as does the book, it is a story that takes place in the world of like S&M in private sex clubs almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Clearly they were not going to get away with that on screen, at least not in wide release. And so they seem to have chosen the leather community almost as a proxy for that. And that is not a one-to-one thing, not even remotely.
I wanted to ask you what you thought of this, because it's something that I think about when I watch it, because I watch this movie more often than I think you might expect me to. Do you feel that this is exploitative?
It is a misunderstanding.
Okay. Because
it's a lazy misunderstanding,
because Friedkin, and he's inspired by certain things, and I'm going to talk about it when we really get into it. He was initially not interested in making the movie, and it wasn't until a sort of convergence of several events that he was sort of tangentially involved, or at least related to, all kind of came together at once, that he was like, okay, I think I know what this movie's going to be about. And he decided to zero in on the leather scene. And I read a ton of interviews with him from like the 90s and from like a few years before his death. And he keeps insisting that like, I think that this to him was just more interesting to present on screen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't disagree, but at the same time, it's deliberately provocative.
Yes, it is and I think that's what I said earlier about the story itself. Like, he is sacrificing the story because he would rather film and show the sort of salacious interior of these sex clubs, which he is presenting as though this is just a part of the leather scene. That is not true. That is a misrepresentation. I mean, it would be fine if it was, but it's just not. Like, yeah. And I think to him and to a lot of people at the time, and maybe a lot of people still, they think that it is. I think he thought like, well, what? I'm just showing this part of the community as it is. And it's like, first of all, what the fuck would you even know about it? But also, no, you're not. You think you are. And that's the problem. So I wanted to throw that out there just kind of at first, because we are probably going to spend a lot of time talking about what's going on with all the protests and all that. And a lot of it is because at this time that it is a shocking amount of violence and a shocking amount of brutality and just cruelty in general. And so the reaction that you get from a lot of people at the time was because of what was happening. It's just really it's in poor taste to be like, I'm going to make this movie right now. And it's like, why right now? When all you have to do is pick up a fucking newspaper. It would be like making Birth of a Nation during
I think that William Friedkin at this time was so up his own ass that he just was not aware of these things.
And the reality was nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
The cops didn't, straight people didn't, nobody fucking cared. And that's what's motivating a lot of the anger. The anger is righteous. Even if the protests are maybe a little misguided, the anger is legitimate. And so I think that I want to just put that out there first, because it's much easier to look at this movie now and say like, oh, it's a relic from a different time. And, because a lot of people are like, oh, I love this movie so much, or it's, this is a queer classic. It's like, this is not a queer classic, but I wanted to talk about it because it gets framed very often as though it is. Mm-hmm. And it's not. This is a movie made by straight people about what they think gay people are.
Yeah.
And that is a huge fucking problem.
Right. We originally had a guest for this episode who just couldn't make the time work. And I really, really wanted to have his point of view on this, because it was Jeff Nelson who joined us a ways back for when we did 10 to Midnight. First of all, he brought this movie to
a similarly sexy film.
Yes. Which shares a cast member. But he brought this movie to Blu-ray over at Shout Factory, and this is his favorite movie like ever.
Yeah.
And his point of view on this would have been really welcomed, because Jeff represents a kind of gay from a bygone era. Just if you follow up on his Instagram, it's his Mondays are real wild when he posts. But
so I will be Jeff's proxy.
You can be the proxy.
I'm not quite the same age, but I may as well be.
All right. So the year was 1980. Year of our Lord.
Beautiful.
Here's some other movies that were released in 1980. Popeye.
Ooh, yikes.
Which was Robin Williams on the most cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Was that's the movie Cocaine made?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. We also had The Apple in 1980.
Jeez, just some stunners.
Just more cocaine. More cocaine. Go back and listen to our episode about the apple. It is a fucking strange movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We also had Can't Stop the Music.
I'm going to talk about that one in just a bit.
Because that movie, very gay.
Sort of.
Leather guy from fucking The Village People, just like in this movie. Except for that one dude from The Village People who performed at Trump's inauguration, swears up and down that YMCA and Macho Man aren't gay as hell.
I don't think he's an original member of The Village People. I think he was like a later, he's sort of like the Mike, it's like Mike Loves Beach Boys. It's like that. Like, I think he's like a later addition and he's just the only one out touring.
Oh, that's the worst. Also, The Fiendish Plot of Dr. Fu Manchu came out that year.
Yuck.
Peter Sellers in Yellowface.
I mean, but I would like to say they should have known better. I don't think Peter Sellers ever knew better, but he should have.
Oh, and rounding it out, Heaven's Gate, which is one of the biggest commercial flops of all time.
Yep. That is a bizarre movie.
Yeah.
Kind of destroyed his career a little bit, at least for a while.
Yeah. So yeah, as we mentioned, our cast and crew, we got director William Friedkin, one of the original and maybe my favorite directors of the 60s and 70s American New Hollywood movement.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I every now and then I'll put a movie on and I'll put a fucking Friedkin movie on and I'll be like, God damn, I love this movie.
I have such a problem with all of those dudes. Like, I recognize that their movies are super good because I was talking to someone earlier today and I was like, man, there are like a handful of Roman Polanski movies that are just like, these are bangers, every one of them. But I'm like, he is a pedophile.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, Friedkin's got some problems, but he's not like that. And he's not like fucking Woody Allen. He's not. Yeah.
He's not chasing after children, which is kind of where we got to draw the line.
No,
I think.
He's a little bit more like a Francis Ford Coppola type, where he was just a control freak and a real difficult person to be around. But yeah,
I think Walter Hill is probably my favorite.
Okay, yeah, no. I revised that, but I still hold William Friedkin in pretty high regard. Yep. Started out as a documentary filmmaker working on television. He moved into the 1970s, directing two of the greatest films of all time, The French Connection and, of course, The Exorcist. And then after a creative decline in the 80s, but not before releasing one of my favorite crime movies of all time, To Live and Die in L.A., Friedkin began a significant run of directing for the stage and, in particular, operas.
Weird.
Yeah.
His 80s stuff, particularly his late 80s stuff, real garbage.
Super bad.
Rampage, bad. Terrible movie.
And the thing, To Live and Die in L.A. is, I would say, probably his last good movie, and it's really fucking good.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Oh, man. I bought the 4K just recently on that last Kino sale. And, man, it looks good. God, what a fucking movie. The car chase in that movie is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically The French Connection 3.
It's The French Connection, but, like, through L.A. traffic the wrong way. It's amazing. Our cast includes Al Pacino. One of the greatest and coolest actors of all time, a dude who made his name in the middle of the 70s New Hollywood movement, turning out intense performances for Coppola, Sidney Lumet, Brian De Palma, Michael Mann, and just fucking so many more.
He's real hit and miss for me.
The thing is he couldn't really go wrong at this period. It's about when he gets into the 90s, like everything he makes after, it's like he made Heat and then was just like, you know what? I think I'm done making good movies. And just,
I think I'd rather be a caricature of myself.
Yeah, I just started acting and everything. And like, some movies would come out with Pacino and people would be like, oh shit, Al Pacino's in that movie. And then you watch it and be like, the fuck is this? What is happening right now?
Well, yeah, now people are like, oh, what are you talking about? The fucking Devil's Advocate is a classic.
The Scent of a Woman? Come on. Yeah.
But Dog Day Afternoon, hell of a movie.
Fucking A. But yeah, by 1980, Pacino was writing his own checks in Hollywood and was able to force his way into cruising with the support of United Artists, despite Friedkin's desire to cast Richard Gere as Steve. Burns is supposed to be a young and naive beat cop in this, like in his 20s, which would have been pretty consistent with Richard Gere, who I think was like 28 at the time.
Yeah, he would have just done Looking for Mr. Goodbar. And
yep.
he looks very young in
he
that
looks
movie.
Super young in that. Like he would have been fucking perfect in this because he's got he's got a look about him in that movie that's very compatible with this one.
Yeah. And they don't, I mean, they try to give you young, idealistic, naive cop at the beginning, and then it's gone within 10 minutes.
Yeah, Pacino was nearly 40 when he made this movie.
Jeez.
Yep. We also have Paul Sorvino.
Paul Sorvino, who looked exactly the same age his entire life.
If your movie had gangsters in it or cops in it and you were shooting in New York, your movie probably had Paul Sorvino in it. He's a big guy that leaves an impression, and he's uniquely suited to play those roles. But he's actually a very fascinating guy. On top of his acting chops, Paul is also an artist working in several mediums. He draws, he paints, and he's an exhibited artist known for his bronze cast sculptures.
I'm pretty sure we have to speak of him in the past tense, no?
Yeah, he died. But also, he was an opera singer.
And he is the father of Mira Sorvino.
And there's another Sorvino out there, isn't there?
I think so.
Yeah. After the Harvey Weinstein shit came out, he threatened to kill Harvey Weinstein.
No, he should have.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
No jury could convict.
I wouldn't even want to. They'd be like, why are we even doing this? Who cares?
I love him in Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. And rounding it out, Karen Allen.
Fucking love Karen Allen.
She's wonderful, right?
She's not into this enough.
Not in it enough. And apparently, I read a really fucking awesome, very long, sort of critical essay about this movie that there was at one time way more Nancy in this movie. And
have you ever read the book?
I have. I read it before this. It's short. It's like 200 pages.
Because she's in the book quite a lot.
Yes.
Or not a lot, but like way more than Karen Allen is in this.
Yeah. In sort of early cuts of the movie, as he was kind of putting it together, like this movie got edited a fuck ton. Mm-hmm. And her role in the movie sort of dwindled the more that he kind of fucked with things.
I mean, that's the problem too with the movie, though, is like they keep cutting out all this plot stuff in order to keep in all this like dudes grinding on each other. It's like, of the two, let's weigh them and see which one might be more important to your movie.
Yeah, and some
it's
of that
not
has
dudes groping each other.
According, it's called Friedkin out. I'll put it in the fucking show notes. And according to these like production notes and all this shit that the guy who wrote that article sort of sourced, there was at one time like the mystery was way more coherent. Mm-hmm. And it was clear who the killer was almost from the beginning. In this one, they pushed that shit right up to the end in order to sort of give a vibe that Friedkin was going for. Because like, as we're going to find out, like the killer is actually played by several different people, kind of for a reason that resolves
very
at
confusing.
The end. Yeah, but and like but for each one of them, like the killer's voice is the same person.
Yeah, it also, you could tell in certain places it's ADR'd and it sounds so bizarre.
Yeah. But back to Karen Allen. Safe to say that her best known role, in spite of a long career in acting, is Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I couldn't blame you.
And she owns a boutique, like an art boutique in
Massachusetts. Yeah, she lives in fucking Western Mass.
Where I can't make that reference.
Out there in the Berkshires.
Yeah, somewhere in the Berkshires.
Yep. She got Raiders of the Lost Ark like right off the back of this movie. Apparently, she was in one of the founding cast members of Knots Landing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Again, Jeff Nelson would have appreciated that.
Get it, Karen Allen. Be on Knots Landing.
Yeah. Everybody. I got soap actors. So common on this podcast.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for soap opera actors.
Oh, shit, yeah. Pushing out like 250 episodes of your fucking TV show every year.
A week.
God. Good God, yeah. We have a tagline.
And a bad one at that.
Sucks. Here it is. Al Pacino is cruising for a killer. That's it. That's it, yeah. Oh, so in 1970... New York Times reporter Gerald Walker publishes a short novel called Cruising about an undercover cop tasked with insinuating himself into the world of New York City's cruising nightlife in order to catch a serial killer.
And you might be asking yourself, is that book homophobic and terrible? And I will tell you, yes, it is.
Holy shit, man. Holy shit.
A wicked lot.
in 200 pages, you're going to come out feeling real bad. You can read it in an afternoon, but boy.
Yeah, it was like, hey, Gerald Walker, have you met any gay people? Do you know any?
I think
at all?
Yeah, I think like his story kind of came off of some articles that I believe he was writing for the New York Times at the time about a series of murders of gay men. And I think this was just like, I don't know, it must have affected him in a way, and that like this is the only fucking conclusion he could come to for why somebody would do what they were doing.
Yeah, I'm going to summarize real briefly what this book is about. And I will say, to his credit, Walker has since said he was not very happy with it when he wrote it. He didn't really like it. He didn't like it throughout most of his life, and he didn't really think that it should be made into a movie. Didn't stop him from selling the rights, but so the book is essentially about a cop who goes undercover. It's very much like this. Goes undercover to find a killer, like a serial killer of gay men. And then somehow he kind of like has to confront his own previously unacknowledged homosexuality. And the story sort of like trades on the belief that closeted gay men are all like self-hating, but at the same time ignores the fact that like the vast majority of gay men who were closeted were because of how society treated them, not the other way around.
Right.
And then like, so through the, I guess, internalized homophobia, the cop ends up becoming a killer. And like the whole idea is like gay men are like recruited, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Oh yeah.
And then
they
develop like a hatred of the men who recruited them. And thus they become like, it's like vampires.
Because because the killer in the book is essentially what Steve Burns, or his name is not Steve Burns. It's John, I can't remember.
It doesn't.
I just fucking read it the other day.
It's a terrible book. It's not good. And
the killer,
really
the killer that
offensive.
he's hunting is essentially doing what he eventually comes to do himself, where he doesn't actually like fuck any of the guys. He just murders them because he's attracted to them.
Yeah. And like, look, again, that is not a thing it's not like that didn't happen. It's extremely rare, but like not the right time, maybe. I mean, never is the right time, since the book like basically went out of publication and never came back.
Right, exactly. Yeah. The version that I read was on archive.org, and it was
I think that's the only place. You can try to find the original pressings. They're like $400 though. It's ridiculous.
No thanks. Didn't like it that much. Didn't like it at all, as a matter of fact.
And he obviously, like I said, he has since been like, I didn't like it. I kind of wish I didn't write it. I was never happy with it. But like it was, I think, the first he wanted to get into writing novels, and it was like the first thing that really caught on. And so he was like, well, I can't blow this chance. And so like on one hand, I guess I kind of get it, but on the other hand, come on, man.
I know. Then they were like, hey, these people want to make a movie. And he's like, make a movie out of my book?
Pretty much. Well, actually, he was like, I guess I don't really get why. And it sort of like kicked around for a really long time. And then by the time they did actually finally get it off the ground, he was like, oh, you're finally doing that, huh? And then like by the end of the movie, he was like, that's not my book.
Right. Because the book has none of the leather stuff in it.
Nope.
No, it's just
it has
guys
to do with
cruising is all it is.
And it does involve some like S&M stuff. But again, the problem of treating those as though they are synonymous is that it misunderstands what both of them are. Like you know what, we'll get into that in a little bit, because I actually have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah. So in the mid 70s, or rather about 1973, producer Philip D'Antonioni picks up the option for the novel, and he brings it to Friedkin, with whom he made the French Connection. And Friedkin was coming off The Exorcist and looking for his next project, but he was not interested in making another cop movie, and he opted to make Sorcerer instead. D'Antonioni then took it to Steven Spielberg, who was absolutely down to direct.
He was like, there will be wall-to-wall dudes fucking.
He would,
like with that real wistful tone, you know?
Lots of golden hour, lots of golden hour shots of genital mutilation. The project stalled when they failed to turn out a script studios would support, because they kept trying to write a script that was like the book, which the book is a little shocking in its violence. Yeah. And so they were trying to sort of maintain the spirit of that. And then it just kind of bottomed out and went nowhere. And Spielberg made Jaws, and the history of Hollywood changed with it. So then in the interim, Paul Morrissey had the option at one time.
I think I remembered reading that a long time ago. That would have been a bizarre movie.
I'm sure.
And probably not a very good one. Let's be honest. Paul Morrissey's not a very good director.
Right.
But his movies are interesting.
Yeah.
They are also very sexy.
Oh, yes, they are. Several years later, following Sorcerer, producer Jerry Weintraub brought it
The real problem, the real fly in the ointment, isn't it?
brought it back to Friedkin, and still he turned it out. But a convergence of events that I mentioned changed his mind. At the same time that he was being persuaded to direct Cruising, Friedkin read Arthur Bell's Village Voice articles about a series of unsolved murders.
Arthur Bell.
Arthur Bell. That's what did I not say that?
Bill.
Yeah. So a series of unsolved murders of gay men among the very leather bars featured in this movie.
And there comes problem number 2, Arthur Bell.
I don't know anything about that guy.
I will explain that in a bit.
Okay. So then Friedkin consults with Randy Jurgensen, who was an NYPD detective that he consulted with on the French Connection, and found that he had actually gone undercover in the same way that Burns does in order to draw out some cops. Okay, so there's 2 stories that I've heard, and all of the ones most of the ones that I read all say the same thing, that Jurgens went into the scene in the same exact way that Steve Burns does in order to shake loose a killer. But I also read a couple of stories that say that there were some cops in the sort of Chelsea West Village, like Greenwich Village scene, who were doing what the cops at the beginning of this movie were doing. And I couldn't find a sort of a middle ground. So I'm not really sure what
They're probably both true.
Yeah.
This is my guess.
But yeah, so allegedly he went down to essentially shake loose a couple of cops who were just hassling the hustlers down around those areas and doing what Joe Spinell does in this movie, essentially. The icing of the cake came when Paul Bateson, the radiology technician that Friedkin featured in the angiogram scene in The Exorcist, was arrested and convicted for the murder of journalist Addison Verrill and implicated in the very murders that Arthur Bell wrote about, colloquially known among the police as the bag murders.
Well, that's not quite what they're known as. I'm going to not say what they're known as, but it's very offensive.
Yeah, I'm sure. They're called the bag murders on the internet. The slay is basically, it was a slaying and dismemberment of 6 men in New York between 75 and 77.
Which is wild because then directly after that, there is a second killer who starts doing the same thing.
Which, again, might fucking inform the way that this movie ends. Which, again, I fucking hate the ending of the movie because it makes a really, really ugly, nasty implication about
Yes, it does.
about the entire scene. So, no conclusive evidence could link Bateson to the murders, but the insane plea deal that Paul Sorvino's Detective Adelson makes Stewart at the end of the movie was a deal that the NYPD detectives and the fucking
the district attorney
also made Bateson, where they were like, we've got you for this murder, but we want you to confess to all of these crimes. And if you do, we'll give you like 8 years instead of fucking 20.
How much are gay lives worth? Not much, apparently.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Now, I don't want to harp on this, but I also kind of do, because I do think it's important to keep reminding people, like, when it came to the pushback of this movie, just imagine what you see when you look at everything. When you look at the news, see what's happening. You see people just like you are being murdered. Then you hear shit like this. And it's like, oh, they really don't give a fuck if someone's killing us. And now they're making a movie that is essentially promoting.
Yeah. What is it? Da Vinci says in the movie, like if the police were to arrest the killer, they'd make him a member of the Vice Squad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it was Arthur Bell who said, gay men are presented as one-dimensional, sex-crazed lunatics, vulnerable victims of violence and death. This isn't a film about how we live. It is a film about why we should be killed.
Shit.
And Art Bell, not a stellar reputation, but hard to argue that he's wrong.
Wrong, right?
So what happens from that point is, so who Art Bell is, he wrote for the Village Voice, and he was like a crime reporter. And again, this is at a time when I don't really know what a comp for the Village Voice would be at that point. Maybe Boston
Phoenix, really?
or your various phoenixes, or it's sort of
what's the one out in Seattle or Portland or Seattle? The one that
the one that
the stranger.
Yeah, Dan Savage writes for him. So he writes for that. Like, and there were shitloads of gay newspapers and like they used to be called bar rags. They were like, small papers you would get and sort of pick up at the bar and flip through and toss when you were done. And they all have people that are covering crime because, like I said, at the time, gay people were being victimized left and right in terrible, terrible ways. And so in this, hearing about the movie, Art Bell, he sort of decides that he can use this opportunity. He knows that Friedkin has been influenced by his articles. So he kind of was like, hey, maybe this is my chance. And calls him up. He says, hey, you read my articles. You want to write this thing. What if I come on board and sort of act as, as a consultant? And Friedkin essentially says, no, thank you. And Bell becomes so disgruntled by that and petty that he decides he's going to kind of use this rejection as an excuse to tank the film. And he tries to turn the gay community in New York against William Friedkin and against cruising.
Right, because when this movie
not that
goes,
hard
when
under
this
the
movie goes
circumstances.
into production, like the scene mobilized.
Mm-hmm. And I am going to, when we talk about this, we're going to talk about it as though it's a kind of a cohesive unit. It really wasn't. Gay communities are different all over the place. They're fragmented in different ways, but there were certain things at certain times that people did kind of rally around. This turned out to be one of them. And so he kind of gets everybody whipped up into a frenzy. And there are the more radical groups kind of get on board, like Gay and Lesbian Task Force, which was not a radical group. That's a Boston group. They were more upstanding, but like groups like that, there were kind of activist groups. They said that, so in Gay and Lesbian Task Force were like this, they said, this is likely to do untold damage to gay men and women by encouraging violence and prejudice. And then, I read you the Bell thing, but, so he kind of like, he's trying to strong arm him a little bit, but I wonder too, as I was reading about all this stuff, I wonder if there was a kind of feeling of betrayal because Friedkin had directed Boys in the Band.
Yep.
Now, Boys in the Band, it's not a great movie. But it is a surprisingly sympathetic portrayal of gay men, even though it has a real sad ending, kind of like it ends on a down note, but he didn't write it. So
I was to say, but also a thing to sort of bear in mind about sort of Friedkin's overall vision for the films that he made is, he makes no sort of, he goes out of his way to make, how the fuck do I phrase this? Ambiguity is sort of his greatest weapon. And so
he's an asshole.
He tries to sort of both sides everything, in ways that instead of sort of elevating one side or another, he tries to sort of put them all in the mud and make them real dirty and shit.
Yeah. So William Friedkin said that he maintained that Boys in the Band was not about gay people, which is a wildly insane thing to say
about this movie in particular.
He says the same about this movie. He fucking
said, like, he's being interviewed by this guy in this one that I read who was like, how, like, what was it? What was the process of like making this movie? And like when you received the sort of pushback, like during production and like when it was protested after it was released, and he was like, I had no idea I was making a political movie. And I was like,
yeah, he's full of shit. He's full of shit. He's such a fucking liar.
No, I don't think that he does. I think that he is a fucking terrible narcissist who just thought that he was just making a movie.
Which is insane. And that, again, that's a big part of the problem. It's like, if you are so arrogant, if your head is so far up your ass, you clearly don't give a shit about what your creative output is doing to the world. In which case, fuck you. I have no respect for you. And that's probably how a lot of people felt. But what happened was, this is going to come as probably a huge surprise to you. The straight world, mostly men, didn't like that gay people were speaking up and didn't like the fact that they were criticizing. If it sounds familiar, it's because it's exactly what's happening right now. So there's this pushback from kind of industry people, but also sort of with some people within the gay community too, like the theater chains, because what what gay groups wanted was essentially they were petitioning theater chains to not run this movie. It wasn't so much like we hate you and we hate your movie and we don't think you should make it. They were essentially saying, please don't keep showing this. This is terrible for our community. It makes people feel really fucking bad. And it might promote more violence. So we would like it if you didn't do that. And a lot of the theater chains, some of them took it very seriously. Some of them in Boston took it very seriously, which I was surprised by. But the Saks chain in New York, and well, actually up and down the East Coast, the owner of the Saks movie theater chain takes out a full page ad in the New York Times, and with the line, it says, "A movement by the gay community to ban the film has no more validity than opposition to The Godfather by the Italian community." That shit is going to catch on so fucking hard because so many people, Al Pacino brings this shit up.
God loves a false equivalency.
It is. It's really like, well, but isn't slavery just like Irish people? And I would put a gun in your mouth. And so this is really what happens is it transforms into this larger, I guess, kind of like culture war between gay groups who are essentially being like, can you not do this? It's really harmful. And then pretty much a lot of straight people that are like, why isn't there a straight pride?
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of that. In San Francisco, Dianne Feinstein is urging theaters to not run this, saying that it's in the interest of preserving the public peace. And so to William Friedkin, it's like deaf ears. He's just like, huh? What?
Yeah.
Why are people so upset with me? So he goes to John Ritchie, who you do not know. John Ritchie wrote a book called City of Night. He was a writer. He was an activist-ish. City of Night is... it's kind of a bit of a sexy novel. It takes place in like the seedy bars. It's a more upstanding, more interesting, more human version of cruising. It's not about a killer. It's not really violent either, but it takes place in like the leather scene. And so he asks him, "Hey, can you screen this movie for me? And go and write a defense of it." So Ritchie sees the movie and he was like, "Well, no, I can't do that for you." But he does write an article, and he essentially says, look, I think obviously William Friedkin has the right to make whatever movie he wants to make. And I think these actors have the right to make whatever they want to make. And he was like, but I think that it is, this is really not a large segment of the gay world. And it sucks because John Ritchie's not a bad person. And he was a decent writer. And he kind of forces him to become an apologist in a way that's like really unsavory. Yeah. Where he has to be like, well, this is just a small segment. And because in doing that, what all these people are essentially saying is, it's that feeling of shame. Like, oh, don't judge all of us because of this. And it's like, don't judge them either. They're just dudes having fun at a fucking bar. And again, the problem is what they are putting forth as the gay leather scene. That is not at all what it's like. I have a huge problem with the way it's all represented in this because it feels extremely threatening all the time.
I know.
In a very bizarre
part of the
way.
reason why I like the vibe so much is because it makes this entire movie feels very dangerous.
Yeah, in a way that's not good though. But like some people do sort of come out to defend Friedkin. So a lot of the extras who are in the bars, they are actually people that were just, part of that community. And they were like, hey, we'll be in a movie. So there's a article that was in the magazine called Mandate, which is a porn magazine, but
featured in this very movie.
Yep. And so they interview a lot of the extras and they're sort of eager to be like, no, it was great. Like we got to show the world that we're just as masculine as any straight man. And I'm like, well, that's a bit of a problem too, that you feel like you have to do that.
Well, it's like there's moments in the police station where they're like treat these guys like, hey, take these ladies out of here. And it's like, did you not just see what was going on in that bar?
I mean, that's always been my argument. It's like, I think you misunderstand. There's no women involved. That's kind of the point. But like, it reaches a crescendo and like a fever pitch. And it eventually kind of comes to nothing. The studio in the end is like, look, we'll put this disclaimer at the top of the movie, which like once you see the movie feels like kind of a slap in the face. Anyway.
I've never seen a version of this movie that has that disclaimer.
Oh, the one I watched does.
Okay.
It's silly. It's basically just like, this only represents one segment of a much larger community. And it's like, go fuck yourselves. Like, this is not undo anything you think you didn't do wrong or whatever. But even Pacino jumps on this train where there's a quote from him that says, "It's just a fragment of the gay community, the way the mafia is a fragment of Italian American life." Like,
motherfucker.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you all like this? Why can't you see this?
The thing with Pacino's reaction is, and I don't know if maybe that again, another false equivalency, was not well received, because after this movie comes out, he does not talk about it like ever. He does not talk about cruising.
He gets real down on this. There's an interview that comes with the new Arrow. So the book, I will say, I am a little ambivalent about these books that are coming with things now. I like that we're getting a lot more context. They're not always good. This one that comes with the cruising set, the new release from Arrow, it's all contemporary stuff. Most of it is contemporary stuff. And it's just interesting to hear. It's a bunch of interviews with Al Pacino, and he is real down on the movie. Like, at first you can see he's just like, I don't know, I thought it was a challenging role. I thought it would be interesting. Like, you kind of feel a little bad because you're like, you're just an actor. You're like, you took a fucking job and you wanted to make a movie. Like, I don't really judge you for it. You didn't write it.
Yeah, he saw something. He saw something with a little edge to it. You know,
Yeah,
wanted to try something out, and he got into it and did not care for this movie.
By the end of the interview, though, you can tell that he is just like, it's garbage. I hate it, because the movie did not do very well critically or commercially. Well, no, I think it did okay commercially.
This movie had no DVD release whatsoever. Fucking Elves came out on DVD, but Cruising did not.
Elves made me laugh more. Yeah, I mean, hey, everybody, if you want to hear both of us laugh, an unhinged laughter for about 5 solid minutes straight, please see our Elms episode.
Oh, that's an episode where we were fucking hanging by our fingertips to sanity.
Yeah. So it's just like, you could tell by the end of that interview where he's like, he feels so sour about it. And you feel like, to the point where I feel a little bad, because it's just like, hey man, it's not your fault. you did a fine job, I guess, like, to the best of your ability. I think what's interesting about this is, if you compare it to some of the other stuff that's coming out at the time. So you brought up earlier, which was it?
Can't Stop the Music.
Yeah, Can't Stop the Music. So Can't Stop the Music and Thank God It's Friday come out, I think, pretty much back to back.
Right around the same time, yeah.
And those are both movies that are built around the popularity of disco, which is obviously gay music. Yep. It's where it started.
Yep. Thank God It's Friday is the better movie.
To the extent that either one of them is particularly
if
good.
I gotta pick one, gun to my head, Thank God It's Friday has Jeff Goldblum in it.
Yeah, it does. It sure does. And he is eager to make it in the disco bar world. I don't know. That movie doesn't have
the disco plot, really. Booth is in a fucking bowl that's being held up by hands. It is an amazing discotheque.
But like, so these are both movies that are ostensibly built around gay culture, but both go out of their way to minimize gay people, such that they're really just kind of wallpaper in the back of the movie. Which is fucking
wild, because Can't Stop the Music has the fucking Village People in it.
Well, if you take that and this, so you have these two common representations of homosexuality, basically what gay people, or what straight people think gay people are at the time: disco and deviant sex. And so you have like, one of them is sort of this charming aesthetic to be enjoyed and co-opted by straight people, and the other is disco. Ayo.
Two great tastes that taste great together.
And then the other, like, you have this sort of belief that, gay people are too aggressive. It's kind of like, and you've got Friedkin being like, no, it's not a gay movie. It's like, what the fuck are you all talking about? It's like, you are exploiting gay people, but then pushing them out of the way.
Yeah.
It's super weird, but I think you can also look at it in comparison to another movie we just brought up, which is Looking for Mr. Goodbar, because that is a movie that, like Cruising, kind of is real victim blaming.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a hell of a movie, man, and
it's pretty good. Yeah,
it's a great movie, but fuck, man, the way it puts the violence done to this woman back on her and says this wouldn't have happened If you hadn't gone out in search of pleasure.
Right. And what both of them are really doing is these are movies being made by people other than the people who are not part of the group they're representing. And there's always an inherent risk in that.
Yeah.
And this is why it usually doesn't go well, especially if you don't do good research and you don't have good intentions. Even when you do have good intentions, it still backfires. See Paris is burning. But I think what's, to focus on this movie specifically, like you said, Friedkin is one of those guys who's like, I'm going to be real edgy. I'm going to push the boundaries of acceptability. It's like, how do you up the ante after The Exorcist?
Right, so right. Because his whole thing, like he's another one of these guys who went to fucking film school and were struck by the French New Wave and fucking cinema verite. It was like, I'm going to do that. Mm-hmm. And so but with the same sort of like fucking asshole attitude that like a lot of these guys had, where they're like, I'm a fucking artist. Like,
right. So
I'm going to push boundaries, man.
And he does. And he, I think, in his desire to, really push the boundaries of acceptability on screen, he really kind of slums it in a way and does it at the expense of other people's humanity in a way that is really distasteful.
Yeah. That being said, I do love the way that like in all of his movies, he makes the cops look like fucking dickheads. So there is definitely, there's an ACAB element to this movie that I do appreciate. But so in the original press kit for the movie, he says he wants to, quote, depict the gay world about which most Americans were so oblivious. It's like, so why this particular part of the gay world then? This is going to upset a lot of motherfuckers in the middle of the country.
Yeah, and you're not even very good at depicting them accurately. Like, this, like I said, this is a movie that, like, they say is supposed to take place in sort of the shadowy world of S&M clubs. But it's really just the leather bar, and
he conflates the two cultures, and there is a lot of crossover there.
Sometimes, what is bizarre is he sees this. It's almost like it's all it's all a Fred Halstead film or a Mapplethorpe photograph to him. It's all this really aggressive. There's nothing playful. There's nothing campy. There's no celebration. There's no joy in any of this. And it's just like, is this what you think gay sex is? It's all like a prelude to a fist fight. Like, it's just, that's the way a lot of it feels.
Yeah.
It's like so aggressive and bizarre. And, and so that's another reason why it kind of draws all of this negative attention. And of course, Jerry Weintraub, who I said was the shitbag of the story, and he was the one who took this sort of cynical approach by telling like everybody who would listen to him that he thought all of this pissing off the gay community was great promotion for the movie.
Hey, there's no such thing as bad press, baby.
Yeah, it's like, God, fuck all of you. Like if there were no stakes and people's actual lives weren't on the line, maybe I wouldn't take such a hard line. But for people to be so fucking glib and flippant about like what is a very, very serious problem, it really fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just hard to watch people do that, which is why it's so hard to watch this now and be like, no, it's a thing of the past. And it's like, it's not a thing of the past, really. It's a thing of the now, too.
Well, that's the thing is people still, like straight people are still finding out about like Folsom Street fairs, and they lose their fucking minds when they find out about them. And they still, and even then, when like fucking pictures or videos of like pride events come out, they have the same exact sort of response as if they're watching scenes from the fucking Eagle's Nest in this movie, Let
me tell you the story about the best response I ever heard to that. So I used to, for a long time I was a volunteer with a queer history group, and I was one of the weird like mole people who just wanted to work with the stuff, and I didn't want to talk to people. But every now and then my friend Libby and I would get stuck like with like student groups and shit, and it was always a disaster because we'd be like, do you guys have any questions or anything? And they'd be like, what's gay people? And we'd be like, oh God. Oh no.
So we'd be like, okay. So this hanky code. Let me ask you some questions.
Kind of. But so we get this group, and they're like, it was I don't remember what level student. They were older, adult students. And you could tell that this was something that a lot of them got dragged along to. And there was a lot of straight people. And one woman said, why, I see pictures and videos and stuff at gay pride parades, and it's like people who are nude or people who are doing, this thing or that thing. Like, why do they do that? Why can't they just be, why does it have to be like that? And there was this guy, Marvin, and Marvin was probably the oldest person in the group. He was, I think, about, 70.
Okay.
At the time. And he was basically with all due respect, these parades aren't for you. You're absolutely welcome to come and see them and come and celebrate. And we would love to have you. But what you're seeing is not for you. And so if you're offended, I don't really know what to tell you. And I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. This is not a thing for you. So stop complaining. If you don't want to see it, don't go to it.
I've seen that in some of the discourse online where that is the response, where the question is what is with all the fucking leather and the puppy play and shit. And somebody will just be like, look, I know that you think everything's for you, but it's not. And you got to learn to live with that. And it was
the way that he said it that was so, it was a very, he was so respectable, and he was very just oh, well, you don't understand it because it's not for you. So that's why when you see it, it seems confusing, and you don't have to be there. It was just such a gentle thing to be oh, well, shut up. I don't care.
I love it. I love
it. This type of discussion still matters because, like I said earlier, we see people trying to throw trans people under the bus right now out of, fear for their own preservation or whatever. Or we see young people being I don't know why it always has to be so sexy. And it's just first of all, read a fucking book. But, we can't turn our backs on each other like that.
Yeah.
The reason that we made it as far as we have, and I say we as queer people, is because there were times like this when people did band together to say, fuck it. We have a lot of problems in our community, but we got to stand together sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's when we fall apart like that, when we don't defend trans people, when we don't, when we engage in bi erasure and shit like that, we got to do better all the time. I got to do better. Everybody has to do better. But to turn on people like that and be well, obviously we can't keep talking about trans issues. I will fucking scream it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Every goddamn day.
The thing that must be kept in mind when approaching that is that this is because Republicans and conservatives all around the world feel that they have lost the culture war on that front. They have found a new hook in sort of trans visibility to drag that back into sort of a new appraisal for the sort of growing wave of conservatism and just bold-faced fascism that's happening right now. And so if you turn your back on trans people, you're just giving them a fucking lever to start criticizing just gay people again. All of a sudden you're going to start to see legislation that's let's re-examine this gay marriage shit.
Yep.
And so you can't throw the fucking baby out with the bathwater. Also, it fucking sucks to do that and just figure it out,
Yeah. I mean, to hear people go through all this mental gymnastics about well, I don't know why, trans people are included in this anyway. It's this, that, and the other thing. And it's first of all, trans people have always been a part of this community, and to say otherwise is historically wrong, and it's just dangerous bullshit. They have contributed as much as anybody else has. They are just as valuable. Their cultural output. There's everything that trans people are doing for the gay community, for people who are different than them. We need to turn around and do exactly the same because all in the same fucking boat, and we always will be. And I will tell you another story that kind of, I think, brought a lot of clarity for me around that. Was talking to my friend Mark a long time ago. And we were kind of talking about that issue. And he said, what changed for him, because he was sort of one of those, he's an older guy, and he was sort of one of those people that was like, I never understood why trans people were included and blah, blah, blah. And he said he had a trans friend who said, we may not be gay or lesbian or bi or whatever. And he said, but you know what? The first thing I hear before somebody throws something at me or hits me in the face is faggot. And he was like, well, I guess you're right. We're all the same team then, aren't we? Yeah. And, it's a little crude, it's a little funny, but it's true. They're going to think of us all the same way. And for fuck's sake, we are all on the same goddamn team. So I hope everybody else, will keep stepping up and embracing and including trans people because they belong there. And it's just the right fucking thing to do.
Exactly.
And I know it seems like a tangent to kind of go off like that, but this is what this movie kind of represents, this ability to pick people apart and say, well, that's not actually what gay people are. And it's like, actually, that is what some gay people are.
Yeah.
The men you see in this movie, those are gay men.
Yep.
And a lot of them did go to bars like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the thing. Because that was another Friedkin thing, was he was always like, when he needed people around to sort of people and populate the scenes, like he would just get the people that occupied those scenes normally. Like in The Exorcist, going back to the Paul Bateson thing and the angiogram, like the only like hired cast members in that scene is Ellen Burstyn. And
yeah, Paul Bateson wasn't just a serial killer.
He was also a radiologist. But the other people like
contain multitudes.
Like the extras and the stuff, like any other director would cast actors in those roles, but he was like, you're here in this hospital, this is what you do, I'm just gonna fucking put you in this and pay you $300. And that's what he did. And again, what he did with this one is he was getting back on track. One of the bars that was intended to be featured in this movie very heavily is a bar called the Mine Shaft.
That is featured in this movie.
Not really. Because going back to the whole bad press thing, is once the sort of mobilization wound up, the owners of the bar wouldn't let him shoot there. And so he went to a place called the Hellfire Club, which was like in the meatpacking district, the same way that the Mine Shaft was. And they dressed it up to look like the Mine Shaft and brought all of the Mine Shaft people there, because Friedkin and Pacino were also hanging out at that bar to sort of see how things go there and see what people were like and how they dressed and how they behaved and shit.
I will tell you though, that's funny that they did, sort of dress the set to look like this other bar, because these places do not look like any fucking gay bar I've ever seen. They are grimy and slimy.
Whenever I watch a movie by Abel Ferrara, he shoots obviously almost exclusively in New York. And when he shoots in bars, he shoots in all of these bars that are like in Midtown and Lower Manhattan. And they all look like this, where they're just like a fucking dank ass basement with like stone walls and a fucking dirt floor and shit. They're like the dirtiest, grungiest, sweatiest bars in the city.
And I do say, the reason I don't want to overlook that is because what this does by representing this as like, yes, there's a fisting scene in this, and it's more implied than anything else, but like
heavily.
And
implied.
Hey, that shit did happen. But there's also, by representing the leather community as this sort of like aggressive, hyper-masculine, deviant, slimy, sleazy group, it completely ignores all of the really important shit, like the motorcycle clubs and the leather scene and the denim scenes, all the fundraising they did, all the activism they did, like they were a huge part of like raising money for AIDS, raising money for like disenfranchised children, like so much that these communities did. And this is just like, hey, aren't they fucking gross and sleazy? It's like, I mean, they're dudes who are getting together and want to fuck each other. You're the one who brought a camera in there.
The thing that strikes me about those scenes, I was going to kind of save it for when we're actually talking about the movie. There is almost an enthusiasm about the way that he shoots these scenes. Like he's into this, he's into what he's seeing. So he's excited by what he's seeing, because
I think that's part of the problem, is that he wants to be like, oh, isn't this grimy and grungy? This is me being real edgy. And it's like, this is you sacrificing an entire fucking story so you can put this on screen.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, people have done this more artfully than you, and they make pornography.
Yeah, right. But yeah, anyways, word spread quickly that Friedkin was directing another violent murder mystery set among the leather set of the city's gay bars, based on a novel about a homophobic murderer and a cop that also turns into a homophobic murderer. And the gay community of the city sort of mobilized. And this is the part that I wasn't sure, like how much of this is true. But again, Mineshaft wouldn't let him shoot there. And a part of the problem for producing this movie all of a sudden was they're shooting in public, they're shooting on city streets. And as much as they can close the streets off to actually shoot this movie, there are people nearby with like air horns and whistles, like to mess up the audio track. And there's apparently people in like fucking above the street in like some of the like the rooms facing the production and like on the roofs with like mirrors and shit reflecting light down to like fuck with the production.
Nice.
Like a bunch of provocateurs who showed up to just sabotage the movie.
Part of the problem too is that they just showed up. Like, you know, at the bars, obviously you need to get extras. So those people have agreed to be there and presumably paid something or whatever the arrangement is. These street scenes, they didn't say, you know, you don't go door to door. You just get your permits or whatever. You show up and you fucking shoot. And so because these are gay communities, you know, heavily, like they're in Greenwich Village or whatever, these are like heavily populated by gay people. All of a sudden this film crew just shows up and they're like, hey, what are you making? What are you doing? What's this movie you're doing? So it's like,
cruising?
You just show up all of a sudden and you've got cameras and you're filming people and, you know, you're filming people who might not be out or who might. So it's already a kind of questionable thing that they're doing. I'm sure William Friedkin and the rest of the fucking crew didn't give a shit.
It never crossed their mind.
No, but it's like they're still showing up. And so a lot of people were kind of pissed just at that. Like, you can't just show up into my neighborhood and point a camera at me.
Yeah.
Or at my friends or whatever. Like, it's, you know, just like you can't show up and kidnap people off the street.
Right.
It's obviously not the same thing, but like, it's that idea of like, are they trying to take down this movie or are they just pissed because their privacy is being invaded? Like, what would you do if someone just set up outside your house all day with a fucking camera? Like, yeah, you'd be pretty angry.
Yeah. When production wrapped, the running time for this movie was 140 minutes, 40 of which were explicit club scenes that Friedkin used to spike the screener sent to the MPAA for classification. His intention was to deliver a dark, violent, and explicitly sexual movie to theaters, but knew that it was going to get killed upon certification, so he went back and forth with the MPAA 50 times.
Until it was an X rating for a long time.
Until they're satisfied enough to give it an R rating. Given that the fisting scene, implied as it is in there, I can't imagine what got cut for the rating.
Well, did you ever see the, what was that James Franco?
I was going to mention that because
James Franco was totally not gay. Not at all.
James Franco made a movie called Interior Leather Bar, which is a fantasization of what those missing 40 minutes could have actually been. Because
they never shot it.
No, Friedkin, before his death, talked about like releasing like a restored version of the movie with that footage. But at this time, United Artists was like not at all interested in their legacy whatsoever. And they just destroyed unused materials. So that shit doesn't exist anymore.
Well, they never actually shot that stuff. It was in the script, but they never shot it. They shot a lot of extra footage. And some of it is on the new Arrow release.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of stuff. It's probably like maybe 5 or 6 more minutes. But that stuff never actually got made because it is explicitly sexual.
Okay.
And so James Franco was like, I'm going to make this thing because I'm not gay at all, but let's make what is essentially gay porn right now. And you can see it. It's you can watch it on the internet. You can probably stream it. I think Canopy has it.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's just like another one of these scenes where you're like, there's the reason they didn't include it, aside from the fact that it almost certainly would have contributed to the X rating, is that it doesn't do anything for the story. Just
it was essentially, according to Friedkin, it was essentially just B-roll.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So,
yeah. I mean, and they do sort of present, I think the way that a lot of that shit gets presented in this is like, you know, at gay bars all over the world, dudes are just fucking on the floor. And it's like, okay, I don't think so, but
yeah.
Most gay bars I have been to and have seen photographs of, it's just people sitting around tables drinking Budweiser.
Oh, what was it? I went to, when I lived in Florida, we would go out with our friend, Ron, and we would go to a place called Little Orphan Andy's with him.
Which is a hilarious title.
It was a very quaint little gay bar that was just a bunch of dudes just having drinks.
Yeah, surprise.
Drinking some beers, doing singing some karaoke.
You know what people, gay dudes do at bars? They sit around and drink beer and talk to each other.
And then,
at Ramrod, Ramrod was probably the grimiest gay bar I've ever been to, and still just sitting around doing nothing.
We went to the Parliament House down there, which was not a gay bar so much as it was a series of gay bars all kind of kludged together with a fucking motel as well.
Oh, there's down the Crown and Anchor in Provincetown is very much like that, where it has like 5 different bars and it's like a inn.
Yeah. You know what goes on there? There's a sports bar. There was a cabaret where we saw some drag shows, and a really big dance club where everybody was just dancing. That's what they do.
Oh, so what you're saying is what people do in gay bars is very similar to what people do in straight bars.
You might say that.
With just like 5% more fisting. 10% tops.
My favorite were the drag queens who danced alone facing the mirror.
Nice.
They were great. I know, fucking Christ. This preamble to the fucking movie discussion is
there's a lot
episode length. But
to say here
before we get to the sort of press reactions, we talk turkey. Here's some other actors who were offered the role of Steve Burns. Roy Scheider.
Ooh,
was offered.
I don't know though. I think Scheider he would have been too old. But Scheider doing like what he does in All That Jazz.
Oh shit! Yes,
that could have been
where he's basically playing.
He's not young or naive.
He's basically playing Bob Fosse.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. Jeff Bridges was the original was Paul Morrissey's pick.
Huh.
Yeah, and of course Robert De Niro.
Boo.
I mean, and then of course Richard Gere, obviously, who I think I would like to see a version of this movie with Richard Gere.
I think it would have been really interesting.
Yeah. So, what did the press think of Cruising?
Critics did not like this movie very much. I'm going to start with my boy Vinny.
Okay.
It's the New York Times.
We got a nice baseline here.
Mm-hmm. Vincent Canopy, New York Times, says, Cruising always seems to be doing its best to avoid admitting what it's about. Perhaps, again, fucking spot on. Perhaps because of the complaints he received during production, Mr. Friedkin has ended up with a movie that's still in the closet. In spite of the gaudiness of the locale, Cruising is a very tepid personal drama. Most of the time, it simply records the details of the cop's underground activities, and most important, what he sees when he hangs out at the leather bars. Again, I think Vincent Canby is really spot on here. It's like, because I don't know if Friedkin became gun shy after he got so much criticism, but like he pulls his punches a lot, and to the point where he's just like, I'm just going to film this instead.
Yeah, I think that he was a little too dedicated to the ambiguity and to its detriment.
Yeah, well, Gene Janey.
Oh, shit.
Gene Siskel. Chicago Tribune. Cruising is mostly a bunch of cheap, brutal thrills that attempt to take one's attention away from a confusing, frustrating, and mixed-up script. That's right, I didn't much care for the picture, or whether it slanders gays. Frankly, The Godfather slandered Italians, but they were both great films. Undoubtedly, Cruising will be protested on its treatment of gays, but on the subject of whether it's a good film, there should be no doubt. Hey, Gene Siskel, I'm glad you're dead.
Fuck this guy. You know, every now and then I think to myself, are we too hard on Gene Siskel? And you have just proven to me we are not hard enough on Gene Siskel.
I mean, he clutches his pearls every time a horror movie comes out. And then this homophobic film comes out and he's like, I don't care about these faggots. What are they complaining about? Wait, you didn't hear a bunch of Italians complaining about The Godfather? That's because it was good.
Oh, God, I hate him so fucking much.
Yep. And Los Angeles Times. Charles Champlin. You don't have to be homosexual to dislike Cruising, but the gay community is not wrong to worry that William Friedkin's movie plays like a recruiting poster for an Anita Bryant parade. It is like taking a Hamburg brothel as the site for an examination of heterosexuality. You don't quite get the full picture of the subject. Again, pretty astute. And finally, Miami Herald Bill Cosper. One could almost say that Friedkin was running scared by the film's end, so he carefully separates good homosexuals from bad, and so careful is he to have a decent quota of bad heterosexuals on hand. Were Cruising a better film, this might be a glaring flaw. As it is, once things get rolling, Cruising is scary but hollow.
Okay.
I kind of agree with all of them. Well, I don't agree with Gene Siskel. I'm glad he's dead. I kind of agree with the rest of them, where the consensus, and there were more, but they kind of just keep repeating themselves. The consensus really is like, he just seems more interested in filming this than everything else. And so by the end of the movie, you're like, wait, what?
Right.
Why?
It's almost like he took an entirely separate movie and just kind of like stuffed them together.
Yeah. He was like, here's an episode about 45 minutes of a murder story. And also here's a bunch of sweaty dudes groping each other. Squish, make them kiss.
All right. Let's get into this, shall we?
I did see something recently where someone it was I think a Justin Liberty thing that I was reading, where he refers to this as William Friedkin's magnum opus. And I was like, I think even William Friedkin would disagree with that.
Oh, fuck. I don't know what his magnum opus would be. Was this in relation to the fucking release of Jade over there?
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to say French Connection. Probably.
Yeah. The Exorcist.
Yep.
Yeah. So we open.
Well, we open on a disclaimer that you did not get, which I said it has a real eye-rolly tone.
Yeah.
And it basically just says like, this is just a representation of one small segment of a much larger population. It's like too fucking late, man. Too little, too late. Shut up and get rolling.
Hashtag not all gays. So we open on a tugboat, just trundling along the East River in New York. The first mate spots
Call! I had to get a Simpsons reference in there.
I love
to
it.
soothe you with sounds of the ocean.
So the first mate.
I also just shot into the red.
Oh, fuck. I'm glad you're here. The first mate spots a little something floating in the water off the bow. When they pull up to it, they find a badly decomposed arm, just neatly severed below the shoulder.
And they're like, but he sees this in the water. They're a good 30 feet away.
I know.
How
I do
much
have a
shit
problem
do you
with
see
this. where
floating in the water?
You are up on the fucking raised up ass bow of this boat, and it is a little human arm just floating there in the water, like off the bow. But we gotta get this shit rolling somehow. So at the city morgue, a police detective asks the examiner if he can match the arm to a torso that was recently fished out of the East River. With some pushback from the examiner, he leaves it on a slab with several other body parts.
Yeah, this is the first of the real like ACAB moments, because the medical examiner is basically like, oh, so sorry you have to go out and do your fucking job.
Right.
Sorry, I can't just tell you who this is based on an arm.
Yeah.
You don't happen to have a face that goes with it, do you?
The detective won't do shit about it because he lacks the rest of the corpse, has too much to do to devote time to finding the rest of it. He's got gay people to harass.
Seriously.
Yeah. So elsewhere in the city, two cops, one of them played by Joe Spinell.
One of them looking sweaty as hell.
Last seen way back in the day in our episode about Maniac. They drive along a darkened street in the East Village. The sidewalks are packed with dudes in tight jeans and leather jackets, despite the summer heat.
My note says, Joe Spinell looking as sweaty and New Yorky as ever.
Is he ever not sweaty? Like that doll that Severin produced of him should have been sweaty too.
God, I
like it should just be like eternally damp.
Oh, God. Yeah. The other guy, because I was like, who the fuck? I know
I've
this
seen him
guy.
in other stuff too. There's a lot of those guys in this movie.
I'm going to call them all out because I had to look them all up because I'm like, oh, I know these people. So the other cop is Mike Starr. He is a character actor from literally everything ever made in the 80s and 90s.
Shit. I knew he looked familiar, but I could not place him.
And they're driving along, and he is pretty much just wholesale lifting the monologue from Taxi Driver.
He is. Oh, but also Joe Spinell is essentially, apparently he was married to a porn star at the time who had just left him. And exactly as he explains in the thing, she make a fool of me, take kids and move to Florida, which is what his wife actually did.
Was Joe Spinell a bad person? I don't want him to be.
I don't think so.
It's kind of like an Ira Levin thing where he's like, this fucking bitch, I'm going to write a book about her. And then he gets done and he's like, well, I shouldn't have written that book about her. And
Right.
now they want to make it a movie. And I already said yes. Oh no.
Right.
Yeah. You did it again, Ira.
Here's my note actually says the cops make shitty Travis Bickle remarks about all the guys.
It very much feels like that, like, you know, like the blood and semen, the rain wash away the sidewalks, the scum of the earth bullshit. That monologue. It's that.
Yeah. All these shitty remarks about all the guys out just looking for a good time. They stop and harass 2 transvestite hustlers. Is that a word I can use? I wasn't really sure about that. Because they're not exactly trans.
I don't think they're trans people. I think they're just sort of out, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of dragging it a little bit.
One of them, played by Gene Davis, last seen butt naked and run wild in our episode about the absolutely insane psycho cop Bronson flick 10 to Midnight.
And I will say, Gene Davis, pretty good in this too.
Pretty good in this. I think he's great. They bring the girls into the car and menace them before pulling them into an alley and basically raping them.
And I think this movie is beautifully shot, like just exquisitely shot. But this transition from the alley to the bar, that tracking shot from the alley to the bar, is so fucking cool.
Oh, mwah. Yeah.
It's like, it's easily, hands down, best shot of the entire movie.
Yep.
Because it follows just one person from the sidewalk who kind of drags your eye across to the bar. It's super cool.
Yeah. So we pan over to the Cockpit, a leather bar in the meatpacking district. A shadowy dude in mirror shades and leather makes his way to the club for some action. It's a dingy basement spot just packed with dudes in varying degrees of undress. Everything from elaborate leather get-ups to nothing but jock straps. It's a gnarly, gritty scene.
It really, like, this envisions the leather community as though, like, just everyone's got a harness on and a jock strap. That's it. Just that. I do love a fucking SS captain's hat.
Fuck. I know, everybody's got a death's head skull, just completely oblivious. But
I think that's what's interesting too, is that by and large, the leather scene, a lot of it is so heavily influenced by Tom of Finland, whose whole thing was about subverting Nazi imagery.
Yeah.
And so it is done with this sort of tongue-in-cheek playfulness that is completely absent from this movie. Like the idea that, like, this was about this is sort of like mocking that masculinity in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just I would
imagine that in the process of storyboarding this and going through production design, like Tom of Finland probably came into the picture, but he probably looked at it and just saw it completely absent from its context and just
He's like,
saw
what are all these cowboys? I don't want this.
Like that man can't possibly have a penis that big. But yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that in my movie? Well, he'll find a use for it, I guess.
So one of the dudes in the crowd makes his way over to the shadowy dude at the bar. They make with some wild conversation before splitting to a nearby hotel to fuck.
This dialogue in that, so this is that moment where it's basically like if you took that first scene between Fred McMurray and Jesus Christ, who's the woman in Double Indemnity? Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah.
The scene where he's just like, how fast am I going? And like, they just this patter back and forth. It's fucking rapid fire, the coolest shit ever. It's like that. If you make it really dumb and sleazy.
Yeah.
It's like this awful, awful dialogue. And the killer's voice, he is the killer. We'll find out eventually. But his voice is 80 yards. So it sounds real tinny and hollow and spacey in a way that I don't dislike. It's just weird.
It's done. Well, yeah. Also, I believe it's done on purpose. There's all sorts of weird, like little strange details to the audio that are done on purpose in this. The voice of the killer that is used for everybody is the same guy. He's the voice actor. He's the guy who plays Stuart's father at the end.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And that it's all supposed to sort of tie together to Stuart's.
You wouldn't know that since they cut out all of the plot.
That's the fucking thing is a lot of the stuff that was made to sort of be an explicit murder mystery was just chopped out in order to sort of make it just this kind of like nebulous.
But hey, don't worry, everybody. That plot that got cut out, equally homophobic and stereotypical.
Right. So it's worth noting that while our victim to be gets undressed down to a jockstrap, the shadowy guy is kept deliberately ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a bunch of things I love about this whole scene. So first, the guy's huffing a little bit of rush to get in the mood.
Pops some amyl nitrates.
And like red flag, the dude is standing in the corner, doesn't even take his sunglasses off, and he's just staring at him from the corner of the room kind of menacingly.
Yeah.
But then like they kind of move over by the bed. There's just a pile of wrestling magazines.
It's like, you bring all this shit with you? Also, where'd the suitcase with the massive dildo come from?
This is what my next note says. Did this guy bring the suitcase of S&M gear with him to a hotel? And my next note is this a hotel? Do they live here?
Yeah. When they're done, the victim-to-be wakes up to find Mr. Killer going through his shit. And he what is it? He pulls his knife out and he's like, "Are you afraid?" And he's like,
This
or he
seems
says
horrible.
something like, "No." And then he goes, "I can't believe you're not afraid." Which, listener, that is a fucking sample in a song that I can't fucking remember. Bring me the xpod@gmail.com. Fucking remind me what that song was.
My guess is going to be Fear Factory.
I thought it was either Ministry, Skinny Puppy, or White Zombie, and I can't fucking put a finger on any of them.
I'm going to say not White Zombie.
Probably not White
I
Zombie.
feel like I would be able to recall it pretty quickly.
Might have, but it's got. I feel like it's Skinny Puppy.
I think it's an industrial thing.
Yeah.
In my bones, I feel industrial.
Yeah.
Front 242.
Yeah. I feel like it's a Skinny Puppy song because they were always sampling like all of these movies.
This is a tough scene because this is the only one where the only murder you see where you see what happens leading up to the actual killing.
Yeah.
Like there's actual dialogue and sort of the emotional output. It's a tough thing to watch.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of lead up to it. You know, just the tying up and all
there's
that,
almost a fetishization of it, which is like, obviously we see this with women all the time. It's the same thing. It's
right. But also done in a way that because the other murders are not like this, it's that ambiguity shit where it's like, is this the same killer? Because,
who knows?
Yeah. Because we don't know. And as we're going to go to find out, the killer in this scene is played by the guy who gets killed at the next murder scene.
Yeah, that's why that bothers me a little bit. The voice thing doesn't bother me so much because you don't hear him talk a lot, and when he does, it's either muddled or it's like sing-songy. It's altered enough that you're like, I couldn't tell you if it's a different guy or not.
Yeah,
but you can tell when he looks different because eventually we are going to land on who the killer is, and I'm like, that's not the same fucking dude though, and you can tell because his hair is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So the killer sits down in the bed, pulls a steak knife out of his boot, turns the victim over and ties his arms and ankles before stabbing him several times in the back.
Also, steak knife? Whose idea was that?
I don't know. Again, I think it's because when they go and get one, and one of the things that they interrogate Skip with is these fucking knives are in every steak house in the city. So it's that like anybody could be the killer here. Also, scene intercut with actual pornography.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We will see quite a lot. I kept trying to pick it out as I saw it, but
he does it a couple of times in the movie. Oh. But whenever somebody gets stabbed, it's intercut with real porn, just like a frame or two. So now at the morgue, the examiner presents the body to Detective Adelson, who is in charge of the investigation of multiple victims. The cops bring in Da Vinci, one of the ladies from the police car, Jean Davis, to look at some mugshots. He identifies another hustler in the book as the cops try to connect him to another murder of a Columbia professor. Da Vinci, a regular CI, takes Adelson into his office, tries to get some relief from the cops in the neighborhood who seem to shake the local dudes down on the regular, but Adelson turns him out on claims that people impersonate cops all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting that so this is the one from the beginning with Joe Spinell.
Yes, right.
And so he's in there saying like, hey, they're shaking us down. These ones are basically sexually assaulting us. Can you please make this stop? And Paul Sorvino, his immediate reaction is like, well, no, they're not cops. Cops wouldn't do that. And it's like, of course they would.
Yeah.
They're fucking terrible.
Right.
But it's interesting. Like there does seem to be, I will say to Friedkin's credit, there does seem to be an awareness that like, this is a group that is equally targeted by the police as they are by other people.
Yeah.
And so like that's I mean, for whatever that's worth, which not much in my book, but.
Later on, Steve Burns, a beat cop, comes into Adelson's office. Adelson runs him down the details of the case. A couple of murders of men picked up through BDSM bars in the meatpacking district. Which again, leather and BDSM bars are not the same thing. Burns was picked because he looks like the victims, and his mission is to blend into the scene and draw the killer out.
Yeah, my note says, what we're saying, Steve, is that you have a look that's real popular with the leather gaze.
And Pacino's hair is extra feathery in this movie.
It really is fluffy.
Yeah.
It's real fluffy.
It's a deep cover job with little support. Burns enthusiastically takes it on.
Well, because the implication is if you do this successfully, then
it's a golden path to the detective.
Straight to the top.
Yeah. By night, he chills in bed with his old lady, Nancy. She wants to know what his new thing at the police is, and he tells her that he can't talk about it. He's taking it on because, he can be a detective if he does that. She mentions his dad, and a dark look comes over him.
Man, but hey, don't invest much in that because you're never going to find out what that's all about.
No, and then he says, there's a lot about me you don't know, baby.
Okay, listen, if anybody ever says to you, there's a lot about me you don't know, you absolutely need to call it off immediately. At best, that person is a junkie who will steal your jar of change. At best.
Sounds a little biographical there.
Look, I'm just telling you, that's how it's going to go every time.
Steve then moves into his temporary Greenwich Village apartment where he finds a closet loaded with Blue Boy magazines like Honcho.
Yeah, my note says, so the gay porn magazines come with the apartment? Or
when I was living in Florida, when I was going to school, and my roommate graduated before I did, he and his family came down like for the graduation, and while we were sleeping in the middle of the night, like they came down and just hoofed it out of his apartment, just moved all of his fucking shit out. Like before I caught them all leaving, and I was like, oh shit, you weren't even gonna say goodbye or nothing. Like I caught him red-handed, and so he was like, yeah, see ya, and then like split, and I went back to bed. When I woke up, I looked in his room, and all he had left behind was like a 4-foot stack of porno magazines. So yeah, this shit just comes with the apartment.
Oh, I remember my friend Laura a long time ago. When she and her husband bought a house, a very small house in Maine. They bought it on like what's that when like the bank essentially repossesses the house?
Oh sure, an auction essentially.
Yeah, and so they bought it and they were doing some renovations to it, and they like opened up a wall, and inside the ceiling was like just fuckloads of pornography, and then in big black letters on the like cinder blocks of the wall it said, "This is my house." And I was like, oh shit. That person's still living in the walls. You know that, right?
In the walls, yeah. Oh, good God, yeah.
So hey, listener, check your walls.
Check your attics.
Yeah, I believe it's called frogging. Yes. I think that's what the kids call it.
Oh yeah. I've seen there was one of those fucking things on like Discovery Plus or something like that, or ID had a show that was all about frogging. And I was like, first of all, that name is fucking stupid. It implies nothing about what's happening. Second of all, terrifying show.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, why are you calling it frogging when it is someone is living in your walls?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Call it bad Ronalding.
That's exactly what it is. Was Honcho just straight porn, or was it more like Playgirl?
Honcho it's a little playgirly. It's not hardcore. It's mostly posing and shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering about that. But as he dumps them in the garbage can in the hall, he meets Ted, his neighbor.
Also, dude, honestly, Al, do not throw those away. You take them, save them. 40 years from now, that shit is worth a fortune.
I know. Ted is a nice young man who makes a real sick burn on Shelley Winters before they head out to have coffee together.
And he's wearing a Christopher Street t-shirt. Christopher Street was a magazine.
All right. He's a struggling playwright, and Steve's cover is that he just dropped out of art school. He's looking for commercial work.
And he says that Steve moved into Bobby's old room.
Yeah.
And he said Bobby was into some weird stuff. And I thought, there's nothing in those magazines that indicates weird stuff.
Right. Ted also knows about the killings through the paper.
Oh, this is also when Steve says that this is his cover story. He just dropped out of art school and he's looking for some work as a commercial artist. And I thought, were they all sitting around and they were like, hey, what's the faggiest career trajectory you can think of?
Well, let's see. Ted's boyfriend is a dancer.
Dancer is taken.
So
it's either waiter or this.
I was like that, or like, man, I hope that you do not have to fucking make a demonstration of your artistic talent at any point. Like, you'd better have some chops to back that up.
That's a risky, yeah.
Right. So yeah, by night, Steve walks the neighborhood, checks out the bars, crowded spots just choked with dudes with righteous mustaches. And the music is fucking awesome in these scenes.
It is, yeah. This movie has a bizarre soundtrack. It's Jack Nietzsche did the like the incidental music score, I guess. For lack
and
of
there's
a better
like
term.
some really great synthesizer stuff in it. There's some really wild like free jazz.
He's an interesting dude. He did like 9.5 weeks. What else do I have of it? Like I've got a bunch of his stuff. He's really interesting. He's a little bit like Paul Zaza and Carl Zitterer in that way of like, he just does a little bit of soundscaping, a little bit of like funky free jazz, like Barry Dvorak a little bit. He's a little bit like that. The guy who did Warriors. But then it also has like the Mink DeVilles.
Yeah, it's Willie DeVille of the Mink DeVilles.
So
if you've never heard him, kind of a minor player in the sort of 77 wave of New York punk.
And also not very good.
It's mostly just more of him, but I love his music. His
songs on this are good. There's some interesting, almost like funk stuff. That's the soundtrack. You can get the soundtrack.
Fucking Germs are on it.
The Germs have like 9 songs on it, which are 6.
They recorded 6 songs for the movie. Only one of them got used. Also, I'm sure Darby Crash stole all the money for heroin.
Yeah, but you can get all of the songs that are on the soundtrack that Waxwork put out.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that the Willie DeVille stuff was ZZ Top, because this is pretty consistent with what they were doing at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The soundtrack's pretty good. It's varied. You gotta wonder, like, was disco just too expensive? Like, were those songs just too expensive?
I would imagine that they were too expensive, but also because there's lots and lots of scenes of guys like dancing in these. And
you can tell they're not dancing to what is playing in the.
No, but like the vibe that he's trying to sell you is like gritty and dirty and sweaty, and a bunch of guys just getting down to Vicky Sue Robinson was and that's what
that is what they would have actually been.
Oh, sure. Like I absolutely guarantee these were all of like the latest disco hits at the time. Like,
and I think that's a bit of a shame, because I think you could do more interesting things by subverting that joy into something darker to convey that grittiness. I think it's a bit of a cop-out to be like, here's Johnny Thunders.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I do believe that it was just a little too expensive.
Yeah,
I did not take note of what the budget of this movie was. It's not a big budget movie, but like as we learned with like Prom Night, the songs that they actually like wrote for the movie were sound-alikes, because like the licensing for like one Gloria Gaynor track was like the entire fucking movie's budget.
Yeah, music is prohibitively expensive. That's why Looking for Mr. Goodbar had never come out on DVD, because there's so much music in it.
Yeah. So Steve stops into a shop on the street. It's called Hot Hankies in the script. And he inquires about the hankies on display, and a young Powers Booth explains the hanky code.
I know. I was like, is that Powers Booth?
Steve, who probably had no idea that people like to go to a club where people wee on each other.
If you missed it, I recently posted on Instagram a matrix, basically of
the one that you had
code.
like scratch out the real spicy codes.
I was about to hit post, and I'm like looking it over, and I was like, oh shit, nope, can't put that on there.
Where did you get that? Is that something from like somebody like your like actual research materials, or did you just find that on the internet?
No, I have it.
That's crazy.
It's from what the fuck is it called? Whatever the leather. I can't remember the name of the leather.
Oh, Innovations
leather
in
store.
Leather. I love the name stuck with me because it's a great name for a store.
Yeah, it's part of my own collection.
You got a personal collection.
I do.
Yeah. So having taken in the scene, Steve gets up in his shit and heads over to the Eagle's Nest, the sweatiest spot in New York, apparently.
He puts on makeup, which is weird, but he's just kind of brushing out his eyebrows.
Yeah, it's just like making them a little dark, kind of like how them ladies do it these days.
Yeah, he's just like, I can't look sparse.
No, he realizes like he's just a fish out of water in these scenes, so he's got to do it up a little bit.
Listen, he's going to be a fish out of water a lot in these scenes.
So several dudes cruise him, including Joe Spinell, until a guy in a yellow hanky and a gnarly light-up belt notices Steve made a decision on which hanky to buy, and wouldn't you know
pissed.
he bought the yellow one and stuffed it in his left back pocket to signal to all the dudes at the Eagle's Nest that he has come to the club to be one of the people who wee on each other.
It's true.
Now,
you know,
why? I have a thought on why he did this, but we never go into this. Why? Of all of the fucking hankies that he could have got, did he pick the piss pig one?
It's sensational. I think that's why Friedkin did it. And I think, again, this is the problem with a lot of this is like what ultimately would have probably really happened is that man would have been like, you should probably take that out of your pocket then, because here's what it means.
Yeah.
It's probably not good. But instead, the guy's just like, fuck you. Why do you have that?
I know.
And
now here's my thought, though. And this is just fucking headcanon. I think that Steve thought that the likelihood of getting cruised with a yellow hanky in his pocket was really, really low.
And I want to say, Steve, I wish that it was.
Like you may as well have put a brown one in your pocket.
It is something, honestly, I do not understand. I am wildly baffled by it.
Yep. Hey, do what you do. Enjoy yourselves.
Yeah. No, hey, I mean, if you find other dudes who want to pee on you, you have my blessing.
If you want to go to a club where people wee on each other, just go for it. So
it eventually did kind of bother me that the way that all of these scenes are shot with this air of menace. And I know that's kind of what he's going for, but it does suggest this interpretation of this particular scene, or maybe gay men as a whole, as though, like, at a certain point, I had to wonder kind of out loud, like, is this what men think, like straight men think of women as? Like this, like everything is a challenge. Like they seem to just sort of like, if they're not going to fuck each other, they're going to fight each other. And it's like, that's not what sex is, or at least it's not what it should be.
Nowadays, I would say that there's probably some substance to that because, we both kind of listen to a lot of podcasts that sort of pick apart the manosphere, and that is a constant fucking theme through a lot of that stuff where like relationships with women are purely transactional. They are objects to be conquered and driven to submission. If you're into like fucking Andrew Tate type shit or like Aubrey Marcus, that kind of fucking garbage. And if one thing can be fucking counted on is that like that shit is consistent as hell. It never fucking changes.
I mean, it's just, it really did feel to me like it feels like men projecting, like straight men projecting this onto gay men as a like, well, I just imagine that's what it must be. And it's like, not at all,
no,
man.
But also I have some thoughts I'm going to say for the very end because as much as I enjoy this movie, as much as I think it is a really, really well-made movie, there is a theme at the end that sort of lays bare, I believe, Friedkin's kind of the way that he came to understand this culture or this. Oh yeah.
And it is deeply wrong and deeply dated.
And I think that there is a violence to his understanding that sort of colors the way that these guys all sort of interact with one another.
And it's also just, in general, it's sort of troubling what it implies for, I guess, straight men of the era.
Yeah. Yeah. So now montage time. Steve works the bars over, talking to the dudes about what's happening around, doing his best not to look like a total narc. He's
not very successful.
He hits the park where he once again runs into Spinell out cruising.
I really like this moment. I think this is a really, it's an interesting touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To like make him not just, obviously because the scene in the cop car, you can understand that as an abuse of power or, just like sort of rape as an abuse of power type of thing. Whereas by extending him into this world more broadly, it complicates things in a way that is interesting. I even like the fact that they don't even go into it much.
No.
Like he just sort of leaves it at that. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think if you were a cop who worked that neighborhood, you would then go out cruising.
You would not be rolling in those fucking bars.
Yeah, but it is, I do like that he sort of includes that in.
Yeah. So now also,
I got a question about how Al Pacino Steve is supposed to play these undercover moments. It's like one way or another, you're going to end up with a dude who wants to have sex with you.
I know, like you can only put this shit off so long before like people start to you're a regular face at these bars and you're the one guy who's not like, sucking and fucking at these places.
Grinding up on somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think, but that would have, again, if he had focused a little more on the story, that could have been a very interesting part of the story. It's
I agree.
Like him, because that is essentially where this story is going.
Yeah.
But by never focusing on any of that, we get to the end and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know. As they size each other up, a gnarly leather and denim dude checks him out and Steve follows him instead.
All of these park scenes are so interesting. They remind me of, obviously, the cruising is not really so big a thing. Not quite like this anymore, but I have written quite a lot about all of this. And so I've interviewed a lot of people about this. And
I remember you telling me about the Fens.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of like the descriptions of there just used to be just scores of men just out in the fucking woods or like out in the fens or out on the Esplanade, like just dudes hanging out. And a lot of it is like what you see where they're all just kind of chilling and talking to each other. And then a couple of them wander off places, but like just people just out fucking.
Yeah. Even up here, apparently, like in Portsmouth, there was a spot like that.
Yeah. And not by the park. Well,
Pierce Island.
Prescott. Yeah. Pierce Island.
Yeah. So during the day, Steve meets Adelson to give him the lowdown. He's learned fuck all, though. He seems to have picked up. All that he seems to have picked up is that all the bars are owned by gangsters, which the cops already know. Also, that's a real detail, right?
Yes.
Why? Or was it just they just happened to own all of these clubs?
No.
Plus
it was,
like regular bars?
Well, yes, but it was more intentional. They could get away with a lot of shit.
Okay.
Because the people who went there and the people who worked there, you wouldn't complain. Essentially, the reason why
they also
gay people
shook
were
them down a lot.
Yes, the reason why gay people were such big targets is because they didn't go to the police because they either did not want to be outed or they knew the police weren't going to help them. Both things were true. So it was a lot, you just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that was just easier to take advantage of them.
Yeah. So at night back in the park, the dude who last cruised Steve is out looking for a good time. He weaves through a crowd of leather and denim dude, meets up with a shadowy guy in a black jacket and mirror shades. That scene taken directly from the book, like fucking word for word. They chat a bit and then they disappear into the bushes, which are also just crowded with dudes out cruising.
It's also like, that's a more real clunky, weird dialogue of like the banter, the kind of patter that they have before they go off. It's just odd.
Yeah. It's like they're circling each other like fucking lions or something.
Yeah. Again, it's this idea of like, this is an act of violence. And it's like, what do you think sex is? This is bizarre.
I know.
Troubling.
The killer sings this weird sing-song thing as they vanish into the bushes. Then he gives the dude the slip.
Deal with that?
I have no clue. I have no fucking
Is it just a cue for us to know?
It's a cue because later on he's going to sneak it into the audio track at a very critical moment.
Mm-hmm. And like we do find out later, like the killer has some not ethnomusicology type of thing, but like music background, musical studies type of thing. And it's like, this would have been more useful if you had bothered to tell us anything about this person.
So yeah, he gives his buddy the slip, then sneaks up on him and stabs him several times to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Steve, meanwhile, is elsewhere in the city, drops by Nancy's place in his peak cap and shades, and just lays the pipe down in a way that suggests that neither of them are enjoying themselves.
No, but also that apartment is amazing. I have a lot of apartment envy. I watch movies and I'm just like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful apartment I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. In the morning, he tells her, "Don't let me lose you."
Jeez.
Yeah. So in the day,
meanwhile, he's reading a newspaper that says "Homo Killer" on the prowl.
Right. In the day, Steve and Ted take a walk. Ted tells him about his roommate, who's really his overbearing, shitty boyfriend, whose show is canceled and he'll be coming home. I really like the Ted character.
I do too.
I think he's he's interesting because he's a sort of normalizing. He's
the one normal gay person you see in this movie. Like the one person who you're like, oh, you just look like a normal dude.
Yeah.
Like you're not out here in fucking Nazi fetish gear.
Yeah, right. But that's not why I like him. I think the guy who plays him is great.
Yeah, he's a very good actor. He's a director.
Oh, no shit. All right. Yeah. But the relationship that he sort of forms with Steve is very pleasant and just, it's a very interesting part of the movie that's, it's set up for a really shitty end, unfortunately.
That would be less shitty if they had bothered to build it out at all. Otherwise, it just seems cruel.
Right. Gregory, the boyfriend, is going to make him quit his dream of writing plays and get a real job. Steve is a sympathetic ear, and their friendship is real and growing.
And this is also like he indicates that he has like some kind of romantic feelings for Steve.
Yeah, right.
It's a very subtle moment, but like it's there, and obviously it was intended to be more. But again,
yeah, they couldn't go that far.
Well, they had other things. They had fisting.
By night,
Steve, and fisting to imply.
Yeah. By night, Steve drops back into the cockpit, finds a place squirming with massive dudes in police uniforms. Just a Bosch painting of guys just boning down on nightsticks and the like.
It is a lot.
It is, it is like there's a guy who is just like casually just bent over a fucking chair getting his ass eaten.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you asked your Christian mom in 1980 what she thought gay men did in a bar together, she would tell you this.
And they wear police uniforms. Mm-hmm. Can you believe it? Yeah, he is definitely not dressed for the occasion, but he does catch the eye of some local rough trade. The bouncers break him up, asking if he's a police officer, which you can take a couple of ways. Steve splits and gets cruised by the kid who spotted him in the club. Steve again wimps out and lets him slide.
I used to know a guy named John Mitzel who owned Glad Day Books, and he had a real cop uniform fetish.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it was a thing. It was a real thing.
Oh no, I'm fully aware of this. He finishes out the night in bed with Nancy, who goes down on him. His expression is pained, and the distant sounds of the club fill his head.
Oh, he's not turning gay.
Oh, they're making him gay.
He's been recruited by the other vampires, yes.
So a ways uptown, Skip, the dude who just cruised Steve, is seen leaving a fancy clothes store. The owner closes up, hops into his fancy ass car. He drives downtown, pops into a peep show for a little action in the back of the store.
Yeah, he's got a real Halston vibe.
Right.
I do love that. So they're in this gay porn theater, store theater. I do love that it's a silent porn movie set to the music of The Germs.
You're right. Yep.
You know how gay people love The Germs, right?
Right. A shadowy dude in a peak cap, mirror shades, and leather pops into one of the booths and starts a movie. Fancy store guy follows him in, gets down on the floor. But before he can do anything, the killer stabs him in the back several times and leaves, placing a bloody quarter in the machine to keep the movie running, buying him some time to get away.
It's a bit of a Howling vibe.
Yeah. Like it's almost like The Howling was like a direct lift of this. Mm-hmm. Steve returns to the village apartment, tries to settle in, but Ted and Gregory can be heard loudly fighting in the neighboring room.
Yeah, Gregory sounds like a real piece of shit here, too.
Yeah, he fucking sucks. He tries to relax, but is restless and leaves. Adelson checks in with the chief of police, who busts his chops about the case. He needs this thing solved to get all the civic and gay groups off his back. The detectives turn up the bloody quarter and lift the killer's print from it.
I gotta wonder. I mean, I feel like you put more than one cop on the case of a serial killer.
Right.
Sure, it's a killer of gays, but that must warrant at least 5 or 6 people, right?
Sure, right? Steve hits the club again, tries to keep his distance as usual, but something in him seems to be changing. He steps up to the bar where he can see a guy at the back of the club, just ass up in a sling, while a dude smears up his entire arm in lube.
This is when America was introduced to fisting. There used to be a bar called Sling in Boston that had a sling in the back room.
Fucking awesome. This scene always makes me think there's a Turbo Negro song called Fist City that I fucking love.
God bless them. Out there doing the Lord's work.
Cruising in, I'm going to rip more than your jeans, he says.
Oh, the Swedes.
So Skip, the kid from the other night, is roughing up a guy by the pinball machines. The bartender tells Steves that he's a bad guy.
Of course, all I could see at this point, all I could picture because this is when Al Pacino starts dancing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And all I could see is that SCTV cooking.
The one that I posted to Instagram. So Steve gets pulled out on the dance floor where he's given a rag soaked in amyl nitrates.
Listen, I think that you need to see this movie if only for this dancing moment.
It is a fucking riot. So,
Al Pacino does not know what to do with his hands or arms.
You know what? I sympathize. As a fellow can't dancer, I get it.
Yeah, look, I cannot say I would fare any better, but it's hilarious.
It's so fucking funny. So every time he hits it, he hits the rag, like the colors in the room like surge, and he begins to just fucking dance violently. Though he does seem to be enjoying himself while the dude in the back just gets fisted 8 ways to Sunday. So outside he chills in the
killing it, Friedkin. Really. A+.
Outside, he chills in a stakeout car with the cops and points Skip to the detective, thinking that he might be a good dude to keep an eye on. The same detective finds Da Vinci at a 3-card monte game, asks about Skip. They give up all they know, but also tell him that he waits tables at a steakhouse, and they find out that the weird sing-song thing the killer does.
I feel like this must have been around a time when this is 1980, so let's imagine late 70s, is around when America broadly, but also people like law enforcement really are learning about serial killers for the first time. And it feels like someone was like, oh, but didn't you know, like they have like signatures and hallmarks and stuff. And they were like, oh, okay.
Right.
Maybe this
sure,
is one. It's like, no, they have them. It's just that they're not that. They're much darker than that.
Yeah, this is 1980. By this point, there were several high-profile ones just operating in fucking around Sacramento, California alone. There's
I know. I just wrote 17,000 stories about all of them.
The detective and a young Al Bundy pop into Skip's Steakhouse, where they steal one of the knives. The medical examiner matches it up to one of the stab wounds.
And they look around, so they sit down at the table. It's weird because they do that. They're both sitting on the same side of the table.
Oh, right.
Presumably because they had to put the camera somewhere. Right. But also, they sit down at the table. First of all, you would just ask for one of these knives. You were a police officer. You can ask for anything you want. They'll give it to you. But they sit at the table, and he's like, I'll have a steak.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what? And then, they cut around. There's this weird kind of pan of people just eating steak.
And it makes me so fucking hungry.
I mean, I like steak, but what does it have to do with anything?
I have no idea. I'm sure the sort of act of these knives, cutting into the meat, is also sort of a, I don't
just like fisting.
Exactly like fisting. So Adelson shows it to Steve, who cruises Skip, and takes him up to a nearby boarding house while wearing a wire.
And meanwhile, the guys in the car who are listening in, they see them go into the hotel and they're like, oh, we got to get ready. And it's like, look, you should have been ready. Right. You should have already been ready. And I hated this scene because I think what they're doing is they're creating a moment of tension because they can't get close enough. They can't, they keep getting interference. They can't hear very well what's happening. That's why he keeps repositioning the antenna on the top of the car.
Yeah.
He's trying to get a better thing, but it's this is so contrived. No cop would be like, oh, we got to get ready now. They're about to do it. Why are you not already ready?
Right. The cops in the nearby car have a shitty signal, can barely make out what's happening in the room. Steve's trying to get Skip to tie him up, but it's not really a scene. When the signal gets too bad, the cops raid the building and bust in the room just to find Steve tied up. And then just before they run into the building, you can hear somebody over because you can still hear the radio kind of wheezing and whining. And you can hear somebody say, who's here, just under the noise of the radio signal.
And it's actually kind of a cool moment. If you had just introduced that whole song just for that moment, I'd get it. I think it works.
Yeah. So the cops bring Steve and Skip in. Steve has to pretend he's not a cop while they shake them both down, get real homophobic on their asses.
Yeah.
And then they bring in a tall black guy wearing nothing but a cowboy hat and a jockstrap. He winds up and slaps Steve so hard he falls out of his chair.
I found this very confusing. And I think I think the implication is something about sexual violence. And if so, are they sort of trading in racist stereotypes?
So what I read about this is something that he got from that guy Jurgensen, who he consulted with for police shit on the French Connection, because he's also the what is it? You like pick your bunions in Philadelphia, like that interrogation scene where they sort of like rain this like torrent of strange questions on the suspect was like one of the things they got from Jurgensen. So like this is also like more of that stuff. Like the cops would just frequently do weird shit to put you sort of off your game. And also if they happen to sort of beat you up in the process and you then had to fucking explain to like a prosecutor that a tall black man in a cowboy hat and a jockstrap came in and beat you up, you would sound like a fucking lunatic. And,
cops.
Yeah.
So good for America.
Yeah. And this is totally fucking consistent with everything I know about the New York Police Department.
It would help if they provided any kind of explanation.
I know.
Because otherwise it comes off as like bizarre and again feels a little racist.
I never understood the scene until I looked it up. A little context would have gone a long way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They run photos of the victims to Skip, who has no idea who they are. Big jockstrap guy comes back in and roughs him up some more. And then more
cops. He tells them they're gonna do the floating ball test. I thought, isn't that how you tell if someone's a witch?
That's exactly what it is. They want to know if he's a witch by putting his balls in the water to see if they float. They have to cut Skip loose when the prints don't match the quarter that they found, but they could have cut him loose sooner because of that detail. But the cops still want to pin the whole thing on him to get him out from under the murder case.
And so this is where Paul Sorvino's character, I can never fucking remember the guy's name.
He's Adelson.
Yeah. They keep implying like he's under so much pressure. He's under the gun. He's got to get this done. He's got to get Steve to get it done for him. But like, we don't really have any story. Like we are now 3/4 of the way through this movie. And it's like, we don't know any of this. So like when he implies all this stuff or says things like, I guess like this is his last case or whatever, he's going to retire. We only get little snippets of this. So I don't give a shit for one thing, but also like, I don't know anything about this. So they keep dropping these little things in. I'm like, I don't know what you're even talking about.
Yeah.
Because you've spent an hour and 15 minutes just showing me dudes groping each other. It's like, that's really what you wanted to film.
All right. Steve goes back to Nancy's place all bugged out. They're going apart, it seems. He looks all banged up and she wants to know what's going on, but he won't tell her. So they break up.
I feel like also, like, Nancy is not supposed to know what his undercover thing is, but like, I feel like she'd still have some new questions, maybe about his attire. Why are you dressed like Freddie Mercury?
I know, right? In an earlier cut, okay, going back to that article that I wrote Friedkin out, there were some production notes about earlier sort of cuts of the movie that Friedkin made that he was screening and trying to get across. This scene this is all like a pieces of a larger subplot where like one of her friends sees him like in his leather getup going into one of these bars and tells her, and she sort of like grapples with this and tries to come up with all of these ways to like sort of keep him. But it all ends up just sort of like cut in favor of them just sort of breaking up.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they break out, and it's implied that he's not really performing with her, if you get my drift. That maybe his tastes are evolving.
I mean, they're changing. He has been recruited.
Yep.
Fully at this point.
So Steve meets Adelson in the city, gives him shit about being roughed up so hard. He's losing touch, doesn't want to do the job anymore. And he's especially disturbed by how the cops treated him just because he's supposed to be gay.
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden Steve's starting to learn that maybe cops are kind of shitty.
Right. Adelson lays it on real heavy. Doesn't let Steve out of the job. Seems like Steve's trying to tell Adelson that he's learning some things about himself out here and that maybe he's unable to accept them. Adelson
but he's also like Adelson's basically just like, you gotta do this for me. I'm like, hey man, why don't you get out there and shake your ass for a little bit? Maybe you can fucking do it too.
Yeah. See how you like Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Adelson gives Steve a yearbook from Columbia and asks him to see if he recognized any one of the photos.
Real tough. I mean, it's a bunch of white guys from Columbia. Honestly, they all look exactly the same.
Say, when he does finally fucking settle on Stewart, I'm like, how the fuck did you match that picture?
I know. They were scanning through it. I'm like, they're like the same person as far as I can tell.
Steve looks it over, spots a guy that he recognizes. He crews Steve at the cockpit and the park, dressed up like the killer in a peak cap, shades, and jacket. It's a guy named Stuart Richards, and he finds out where he lives. So we catch up with Stuart out for a run, keeping up a fucking crazy pace in jeans.
In jeans, no less.
Wild.
Is that an 80s thing?
It must have been like, jogging, like didn't really have a whole lot of products. You couldn't just get yourself. It's hot as fuck in the city, apparently. Put some fucking shorts on, dude.
Look, as someone who occasionally runs, I cannot imagine doing that in jeans.
And he's booking it too.
Mm-hmm.
Then he hangs out with his bro, tells him this is Stuart, about how his dad is busting his chops.
And Stuart's friend Paul, he is the dad from that show Boy Meets World.
That's where I'd seen him before. He was another guy where I was like, I know that guy from somewhere. Mm-hmm. Yep. There it is. Boy Meets World. His dad is busting his chops about an allowance, and he's out here as a post-grad writing a thesis on musical theater.
It's almost like he would know lots of little sing-songy things.
Yep. Steve is hanging out in the park across from the apartment, just staking Stuart out.
Looking like a real fucking weirdo.
Steve spends a lot of time staking him out, actually. Stuart starts to notice, and he chills out in the park.
I actually like those. I like this kind of cat and mouse scene. I like the way it's shot.
I do like the way that it is, because eventually, like, he starts to fucking notice. It's impossible not to, because he's always like on that bridge, like intensely staring at him and shit.
Yeah, he's like right outside his fucking window. But he may as well have binoculars and like a big flag.
But it comes out of nowhere. This is the moment where they were like, okay, let's wrap this shit up.
And it really feels that way. Like, it feels like they were like, oh, right, we're supposed to have a story too, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can't just be an hour and a half of like fisting and grinding. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can be. This is a different kind of movie.
When Stuart leaves his apartment one day, Steve breaks in through the window, which he left open like a fucking fool.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's what I wonder about this. Again, because now we're like, oh, right, pedal to the floor. We got to get this shit done. I wonder is this supposed to be a sort of a sign that like Steve has sort of been evolving, but is this a sign that he's like kind of getting a little loose with the law too?
Yeah, he's desperate.
It's not like we would know,
desperate to wrap this shit up, and Adelson needs it wrapped up, and he needs it wrapped up just so he can go back to his regular life.
And this is the problem. Is like all this B plot shit, which actually should be the A plot, it just feels insignificant because we've spent so much time ignoring it and avoiding it that it's like, oh, I don't really know anything about this. I'm not invested in this because they haven't even hinted at that for most of the movie.
Yeah, you're right. Steve rummages through the place, finds his leather stash in the closet along with a box full of letters addressed to but not mailed to Stuart's father. The letters are feverish and crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're real on the nose daddy issue stuff. They definitely feel like they're written by a straight man.
The one that I love is the second one, where he's like, I saw the dark shape in the park the other day. It was dripping from the trees, and I now know what I have to do. And I was like, oh fuck, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It kind of makes you wish they'd actually made an actual story.
When Stuart returns home, he realizes someone's been in there. He goes to check his stuff and finds the box of letters tossed. And when he looks out the window, he sees Steve across the way, just smiling at him.
And it's a really cool, like the way that it's shot, like, because they're at different heights and they're both very clearly staring at each other. And yet you can't you can't really tell because it's shot from a distance, but like it just looks really neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Later on, Stuart walks the park, sits down next to his dad, who is distant and aloof until he turns to him and seems to imply that he has a terrible duty to carry out. Then we flash back to Stuart's room where he is not, in fact, left. He pulls a knife from his boots, which is not the knife that we've seen the killer use. And then Steve heads back out, knocks on Ted's door, and it's answered by a wild James Remar, fresh off the
Answered by
Warriors.
Ajax.
Much better hair.
Yeah.
Yep.
But also, I will say, Gregory, who is Ted's, I guess, boyfriend or roommate, whatever, he's supposed to be a dancer.
Yep.
I mean, look, Ajax is in good shape. He does not have a dancer's body, though.
No.
He has the body of a warrior.
He's wearing those little green undies.
Mm-hmm.
Greg busts his chops about hanging out with Ted, and then he shakes him off, implying that Ted also fucked around with a guy who lived in Steve's apartment.
And he says Ted is too sensitive to have too many involvements.
Right. Then we cut to Ted's apartment interior. Greg opens the door to see if Steve is gone, but Steve's busts the fuck in and starts beating Greg up. And then
I get so. What are we to make of this moment?
This is the set. Okay, so this is him being like, he fucking hates Greg because he's like experiencing him. He's only had an experience with him as a sort of third person up until this point. And he, for lack of a better word, I would say loves Ted. And so this is him just fucking mad that he's like stuck with this shithead. And it's not ambiguous at all. Like Greg sucks.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a piece of shit.
Yeah. So yeah, Greg ends up waving a big kitchen knife at him, driving Steve off. So out Steve goes into the night.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not gay. What are you talking about?
Stops by Stewart's place, hits the buzzer to his apartment. Then he waits outside till he comes out. They walk into the park together and circle one another, just sizing each other up on the park benches, having a smoke. Steve sings the killer's little song and suggests that they go down to the tunnel to fuck.
And it's fun. Like, we finally get some tension after an hour and 40 minutes in this movie.
I know.
Like all of the sudden we feel like, oh, right, something bad could happen. And at one point Stewart says, don't worry, Dorothy, there's nobody around.
Yep. They hit the tunnel and begin to undress. This is the part where he looks
fucking wild.
He looks at him. He's like, hips or lips, baby.
Don't like it. Do not care for it at all.
I love that line so fucking much. In that SCTV clip, he goes, beaks or cheeks. So now Steve, pantsless, comes up on Stewart, who isn't undressing. When he goes to drop his pants, he lunges at Steve with a knife very suddenly, but Steve's ready, sidesteps the attack, stabbing Stewart instead. So now in the hospital, they explain to Stewart what just happened. They can conclusively pin the murder at the peep show on him because of the fingerprint. Adelson tells him that he's going to get 20 to life for that killing, but if he confesses to all of the killings they suspect him of, he'll only get 8. Stewart insists that he never killed anybody. I cannot explain that. I think that it is a desperation to just clear those fucking murders, and they're going to do it in a way that benefits the fucking killer.
Nice.
You know. Then Adelson welcomes Stewart to the detective division as he leaves the hospital. Back at Stewart's place, they talk to Stewart's bro. They ask about the box of letters. His friend tells them that Stewart's father's been dead for 10 years. And he's always talked.
Gasp!
Talked about him as like he was alive. Back at Steve's village apartment, the police show up to work a crime scene in Ted's apartment. Ted lies dead in the bathroom, brutalized and stabbed several times with the kitchen knife from the previous scene.
Sucks.
Yep. I hate it. The responding officer is Officer Joe Spinell. And then Adelson recognizes him from Da Vinci's requests for help. Greg is the suspect, but Adelson comes to a grim realization when he finds out that Ted's neighbor was John Forbes, Steve's cover name.
Yep. He turned gay and started killing people.
Yeah.
That's how it happens.
Yes, cut to the exterior of the cockpit. A dude who looks an awful lot like the killer makes his way down into the club. And now we cut to Nancy's apartment. And she comes in
where she has a headshot of Karen Allen just casually framed by the telephone.
Yep. She comes in to find Steve shaving in the bathroom. He tells her that it's all over. He's going to tell her everything. He just wants to finish shaving. She goes out to the living room where she finds Steve's jacket, mirror shades, and peaked cap, just like the killer wore. She puts it all on, for funsies.
Yeah.
And Steve looks at his mirror, his reflection in the mirror. Then he looks at the camera, haunted. Cut to the East River where a tugboat trundles by. Roll credits. So this is why I hate the ending. And I think we've made it pretty fucking clear. The ending implies that Stewart is just one of any number of violent leather bar killers who target gay men. they imply that
another way of phrasing that is Stewart is just one of many violent leather gay killers.
Yeah. And it's heavily implied that Steve murdered Ted as well. Even though they're like, well, Greg is, out, we're out looking for his boyfriend who's the main suspect, but come on. The implication here is
right. No, I think it's pretty obvious
that because of Steve's exposure to this lifestyle, because of the way that it changed him and made him gay, it also made him violent. And that because of all of this, the implication here is that there is an inherent violence to this lifestyle that is just made up of fucking whole cloth. It is the conclusion that a straight person would come to based on just observing these men in action in their element in these clubs
without bothering to get any context, without bothering to hear anything from them, to know that this is all kind of a performance. This is all kind of pageantry and performance and theater that is, a bit of play.
Yeah. Because
instead he sees it as like reality.
Yeah. And at the same time as this is happening, the first deaths related to AIDS are starting to emerge in the city. It doesn't really have a name at the time. So there is this sort of like vibe of death around the entire culture from an outsider's perspective. It's unsavory. It's extremely ugly. Also, I fucking hate this conclusion that Friedkin comes to.
And to go back to what I was saying up at the top is that vibe. So obviously things get much, much worse as the 80s goes on, but that vibe was already there. The threat of violence is something that gay people have always lived with every single day. It's something that, like, no matter who you are, like I live in one of the most liberal places in the world. I am acutely aware of it every time I leave my house. It is something that I live with, that everybody that like me lives with. It just is on your mind because you know it could happen.
Yeah.
And to make a movie like this and be like, no, the real threat comes from within. It's like, hey man, fuck you.
I know. I think that some of it is sort of informed by the sort of the BDSM qualities of what he was sort of trying to put out, because I think
which is also a misunderstanding of that culture as well.
Which I mean, like, because I mean that's not exclusively a gay thing, obviously, but particularly as that sort of began to become a thing, usually sort of like an element of comedy, but eventually starts to make its way as sort of like the dark side of sexuality in the 80s. It's played up in the same, like, the way that
Clive Barker.
Yeah, like the way that outsiders sort of understand it is the people who engage in this sort of sexuality are also violent. Because why else would you do this to another person, or would you welcome this on yourself?
It is that people believe those things because they want to believe them. Because it's a lot easier to believe those things.
Yeah, I think that when you're presented with something that is as provocative as that, you feel, especially if you have no connection to it, it's not a part of your own sexuality. You're an outsider viewing this. It's something that you just, once you see it, you have to sort of get your head around it, and you, without anybody to fucking talk to or really sort of like learn about it, there's like really fucking no way to do that particularly in the fucking 70s and 80s. You start to just sort of draw conclusions based on your sort of observations.
Right. And it's a very easy step to go from your whatever that on its face to go, oh, well, that's why these people are victims of violence, because look at what they're engaging in.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, well, then it's probably their fault to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like
there
was an inherent danger in cruising, the actual act, the act itself. But like, this movie would have you believe that you're second away from being knifed to death in the bushes, But also all cruising is going out and picking up someone you don't know. Straight people do it all the fucking time. We just don't have a fancy fun name for it. Yep.
So it's the same exact thing as like if you went to a bar and met someone there that you didn't know and you went home with them. Yeah. It's the same fucking thing. This is just happening in a bar and you go to a park or whatever. Like it's the same thing. It just has a different word.
Yeah.
The movie is cynical. It's sleazy. I think it it's reckless, and I think in a lot of ways it's cruel.
Yeah, I love the sleaze. I love the cynicism about it. It's the things about Friedkin's movies that I like. That cruelty is the part that
right
fucks
and
with me.
This one does, I think, have some consequences. And again, I'm not going to go so far as to say this movie inspires violence. That violence was going to be there either way.
It was happening before that. It's just that this gave a reason to sort of publicize it in a certain sensational way.
What you see in the years directly following this is you do start to see bars like the Anvil, or like what the fuck is it called? Manhole, Manpower,
the Mine Shaft.
Yeah,
I love that. I love the names of these places.
I mean, the Mine Shaft at one point is shot up with a machine gun, and a bunch of people are killed outside.
Oh yeah, that dude. Oh man, that story is fucking awful.
And that is a hate crime. That is not directly related to this, but it does give people another place to sort of target their rage or their frustration or their anger or whatever. So it doesn't help. And I think that's probably my issue. And so when it comes to the question of like, how do we feel about this movie now? It's tough because in some ways the movie is antiquated, and it feels like it's easy to look at that kind of controversy and be like, well, it's so old at this point. It's kind of like when you watch, shit that's kind of homophobic from the 70s and the 80s, and you're like, I can kind of forgive it because it's so old, and just like, that's just the way it was and whatever. And we don't take it as seriously now or judge it as harshly now because it's a lot easier to watch this today than it would have been in 1980. But on the other hand, it's impossible for me to watch this movie without knowing the historical and cultural context that, in which it was produced. And so that being the case, it's really difficult to just see this as an artifact of another time, or just as another one of those, fucking new American dude directors, because it really was doing a direct disservice to gay people and gay men specifically. Like, I know that we try to be very inclusive, but like, this was about gay men, because gay men were the victims of violence far more than anybody else was. And so,
there was also sort of a refusal at the time to address lesbians, and still, I would say even today, in many ways.
They were not as victimized as much. They did experience harassment and violence, just not on the same level.
I know they had lesbian bars without fire exits.
That's her problem.
Enjoy your death trap, ladies.
But so like, and what ultimately what those protests were doing. That was people saying, please don't do this. You're hurting our community. You are upsetting people by doing this. And what the filmmakers, and Friedkin in particular, well, I think Friedkin just stuck his head in the sand and pretended it wasn't an issue, and he was above it all.
I agree with that.
Like Weintraub and all these other people basically looked at them and said, no, I don't care. And that's such a callous and shitty thing to do. So it's impossible for me to watch this movie and not be aware of that. And that hurts to watch that.
Yeah.
So it is tough to be like, I do appreciate grime and sleaze, and I love an exploitation movie, but it's hard to look at this and be like, they knew what this was doing because people were telling them exactly why they didn't want them to do it, and they just didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to look at it and be like, it's so great, I love it, but also like, I don't love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's how we ended up with what we've got now. Like, things are obviously considerably better, but still a lot of the same problems.
Yeah, like a lot of like so much fucking progress has been made. Like there was a like one of my daughter's friends was introduced to us, and he just like in the course of conversation, also very very obviously gay himself, but he just came out and said it at one point, and it was like, I don't remember. I can't, like, thinking back to like when I was graduating high school.
Oh, you should have been like, yeah, Nancy, I know. Jesus,
nobody would have fucking done that.
No, nobody. I mean, even though it was just the 90s, like, just didn't tell people because it was terrifying, because you never knew what they were going to do. You still don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
Even I'm fucking middle-aged, and it's like, you still have, when you meet new people, like, obviously I talk about the fact that I have a boyfriend and I'm a very vocally queer person, but like, you still have to say it. And every time you do it to a new person, you never know.
Right.
And that is a constant fear. And like, that's now. Imagine the 70s or earlier. And so it just sucks to have like people be like, I love that movie so much. And it's like, that was a harmful movie. And it's harmful in a way that was direct and intentional. It's not like other movies where it's like, yeah, people made homophobic movies and said homophobic shit because they didn't know any better or whatever. Like, I'm not going to excuse it, but like they literally had people screaming in their face not to do it.
Right.
Like, it cannot be more explicit.
Right.
So,
well,
there she is.
Cruising. Boy, what a fucking complicated movie. I do feel, though, through the sort of like, I used to really, really like this movie, though, through the course of our conversation, I don't want to say soured on it. I feel like I've changed my opinion of it a little bit. I feel like I like it a little less.
I mean, he could have made a different movie, and I think there is a good movie in here. He just chose not to do it.
Yeah.
He chose to be sensational and sleazy. And it's like, William Friedkin was a wildly talented director.
Yep.
And so that's why it's sort of doubly shitty to be like, you fucking squandered an opportunity to do something interesting.
Right.
Maybe I'm as offended by that.
Right. No, it was after the 70s, like things start to slide. Like To Live and Die in LA is a fucking aberration. The 80s, we see... There's this. He follows this up with Deal of the Century, which is the Gregory Hines movie with Chevy Chase, which is real fucking bad.
And you put Chevy Chase in anything, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, but like it's...
But I mean, like towards the end, he makes Rampage. Then he makes Bug, and it's like,
I actually kind of like
You're
Bug.
Trying to come back.
I like Bug. I think that's a intense little self-contained nightmare. But little bits and pieces, things that sort of shine in a kind of a shitty sea. So but anyways, that's Cruising.
There she is.
There it is. Where are we off to? Where are the seas of Pride taking us next?
Well, as you said, next week on Bring Me the Axe, we are going to be talking about one of the coolest pre-code movies ever made. The visually stunning Jacques Tourneur film, Cat People. Lesbian existential crisis. And then 2 weeks, Pride Month continues apace on 99-cent rental with the German crime comedy Killer Condom. German crime comedy Killer Condom.
Never seen it.
Oh, I hope you will be surprised. I was very, very surprised when I saw it because it was initially distributed by Troma, who I have very low opinions of.
That's the thing is when it came out, it's a movie called Killer Condom. It had the Troma label on it. And I was like, it doesn't look like a movie I feel like watching.
It is surprisingly good, surprisingly progressive, and a very interesting, fun story. I believe it's based on a comic book.
Okay, cool. All right,
a German comic.
Get back here next week for Cat People, and then be back in 2 for Killer Condom. We'll see you then.